here we go.
No, they can't get far.
Escaping the realm of darkness. The paranormal guys are on a quest to find the answers to the hard questions of where the normal meets the paranormal and the weird, and where the natural meets the unnatural. So grab your holy water, call your mama, and get ready for the Paranormal Guys podcast.
Hello, everybody. Today's date is March 3rd, 2024. Steve, we are getting close to St. Patrick's Day.
That's right. Luck of the Irish.
Luck of the
or
Irish?
Curse of the Little Green People.
Do you ever see that movie? What was the name of that movie where...
Leprechaun?
No, well, you've seen the movie Leprechaun, haven't you?
No, I heard about it though.
Oh, you've never seen the movie? Did you ever... Well, you've never
It's
seen
like
Leprechaun.
Irish Chucky, right?
Yeah, basically, it's an Irish Chucky. Yeah,
Okay.
You know what? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's folklore of a little creature who is a leprechaun, but the best one they ever did was called Leprechaun in the Hood. It was, oh my
How
God.
did that go over?
Oh my God, that was so good. Oh my God, Leprechaun in the Hood. I think that's how it was, the title was, but it was the leprechaun. He was in the hood, and some of the guys, they found his pot of gold or something. I remember it just being so humorous. But yeah, I remember when my kids were little, I used to tell them a story around St. Patrick's Day that I would tell them that I would pretend that I'd be looking out the window and they'd be like, "What are you looking at, Dad?" And I go, "Oh my God. There's a little leprechaun. He's going in and out of that tree over there." Almost like the Keebler elf type thing.
Mm-hmm.
They go, "Are you serious, Dad?" I go, "Oh my God. He just went back inside the tree." They're like, "Oh my God." So they run outside and they start running towards this tree, and they're looking for the little leprechaun man over at the base of the tree. And I'm just sitting in the house just giggling, just watching these two believe that there was a little leprechaun. And this is when they were little, like I think
It wasn't like when they were 20.
well, you never know in these days and age, some of these kids nowadays, do a couple too many drugs, and next thing you know, you look for leprechauns.
Mm-hmm. You might find one.
What's that?
They might find one if they're on the right drugs.
Yeah.
Don't
What
do
you
drugs,
guys
kids. It's bad.
Do you celebrate St. Patrick's Day?
Of course.
Oh yeah. Well, you live in a good neighborhood.
I'm not Irish. I'm an American guy, but my lineage, I guess that's what they call it, is of German descent. But we like Irish people too,
Yeah, the Germans like to drink, the Irish like to drink, so we all
get
have something in
along
common.
until after too many drinks, and then things get crazy. But
Then you get angry.
the Germans don't really get angry. We just don't have a very good sense of humor. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. German people don't tell jokes very well, and Irish people love to joke all the time. And when you drink, Germans do get a little more serious when they drink, and then the Irish just, not all, but most.
Today, let's fight.
They want to fight, yeah.
You want to fight me,
especially the women.
Oh yeah, some of the women. I'm gonna tell you, I know some of those women, man.
No offense,
but I've seen you.
I'm sure you're a nice person.
Yeah, I've seen some of those girls. Oh dear Lord in heaven.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. I live in an Irish neighborhood in Chicago.
Yeah, predominantly Irish. I grew up in the neighborhood there.
Mount Greenwood. I did not grow up here. I moved here when almost 20 years ago. Not quite, but almost. And it's interesting neighborhood because it gets a lot of bad rap, but it's not like what people say. You know?
Yeah. It's a good neighborhood. It's a good, solid neighborhood. Yeah. Everybody's pretty friendly in the neighborhood. But it's a very good neighborhood. And it has the best St. Patrick's Day parade up and down Western Avenue every year
The
from
Southside
103rd.
Parade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Southside Irish Parade, starting at 103rd, usually on Western, going all the way to 115th.
Hmm.
I was going to it when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I actually remember the lady who actually started it. Oh, Miss Coakley. Her name was
Miss
Miss Coakley.
Miss Coakley.
I went to school with her kids.
Oh,
And I remember how it started was I wasn't part of it, but I remember the story behind it is that um, because I grew up on Washtenaw and her kids grew up on Washtenaw and they would do a parade. That's how it actually started. I believe it was on Washtenaw.
just her and her kids
Yeah,
did a
kids and
parade?
kids in the neighborhood walking up and down Washtenaw Avenue.
What were
And
they
then
doing?
it compiled into this huge parade that they've been having for years.
That's all it takes to start a parade is just get some people to start walking up and down the street
And
and
then
then
it catches like a flame, dude.
just keep repeating it every year around the same time and it becomes a parade.
Catches like a flame.
Let's do a paranormal parade. Why don't we have a paranormal parade?
Well,
Let's pick a
I'm
street.
actually
Let's walk
just
up
so
and down in not in sheets because that might be looked upon the wrong way.
right.
Um, but like not as ghost, but we'll dress as like any paranormal thing other than ghost, and just walk up and down the street, and then repeat it next year, and then it'll catch on. It'll become the Chicago Paranormal Parade.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I don't think making us throw white sheets on, trying to make it look like we're ghosts going up and down Western Avenue would
You
be an
think it might
excellent
be
idea.
misinterpreted?
I think it's gonna definitely be misinterpreted, and I think we might
Hey,
run into
did you
going
see
to the
that new
hospital.
parade they got going in the Mount Greenwood neighborhood? Ghost my ass.
That's not the ghost, man.
Yeah,
And we're
that's
like,
not a
no,
ghost.
we're trying to do a paranormal parade. Just me and you walking up and down Western Avenue.
Talk
They're
about
like,
getting
boo,
canceled.
boo.
Oh, it wouldn't be a good idea because people don't understand. They take everything the wrong way, and
Yeah. I would
I
take it the wrong
understand
way, to be
why.
honest with you, too. If I saw two white guys going down Western Avenue throwing a white
We're
sheet,
starting a parade every year, man.
what kind of parade are you starting?
We're Ghost. Boo.
It would be like, how the Blues Brothers movie where
That'd
John
be like
Belushi,
Dumb
he
and
goes,
Dumber,
huh?
like Dumb and Dumber, part 4, whatever.
Oh my God.
But no, why not a parade, a paranormal parade? I mean, I'm being serious a little bit. Like,
Oh,
obviously, don't do that, but like, don't dress that way. But you know, like
yeah, I agree.
witchy and
Yeah.
ghoulish, and you know,
Well, you just brought up a very important message from Neil from Graveside Paranormal and the Paranormal Guys. In the next weeks to come, because today is now March 3rd, I am going to be announcing something that's going to be coming as part of our new tours very, very soon that Neil's been working on. So stand by. Uh, it's almost like a parade type thing that's going to be
oh yeah,
happening. Huh?
oh yeah,
Oh yeah, tell your friends, tell your neighbors.
they're awesome.
As soon, hopefully, if everything goes right, I will make an announcement within the next week or two.
Okay,
Does that sound good?
yeah, I got the sheets in the dryer.
All right. Well, moving on. Let's move on to the usual thing that we usually do is we do our little news. Do you have a news article today, Steve? Let me start our little thing. But you do have one today, yes?
Absolutely.
All right. So today I'm going to let you go first.
I go
Hold
first.
on. All right, Steve.
I've got creepy news, but not like the supernatural kind of creepy news. The
All
kind
right.
of in your workplace creepy news, creepy employer news.
Okay. What is it? What's going on?
Well, it has to do with AI, and guess what's coming to a workplace near you, Neil? Well,
What's
you don't have
that?
to worry because you're retired, but Walmart, Delta, Chevron, and Starbucks are using AI to monitor employee messages. And why? Because they want to be extra creepy. Strap in because I'm about to tell you a little story about the latest creepy stuff going on in the workplace.
Wow.
So it's brought to you by Big Brother. And
This is brought to you by Big Brother.
imagine you're typing away in like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or whatever instant messenger you got, Slack, spilling your guts about how the new coffee blend in the break room tastes kind of like burnt rubber, only to find out that the AI is lurking in the shadows, analyzing every word you type. Welcome to the workplace of the future, or not so far away future, where companies like Walmart, Delta, T-Mobile, Chevron, and Starbucks are currently using high tech startup to play the role of the office eavesdropper. So basically, there's a company called Aware. They've been around for 7 years, making it like kind of established in a way. It's not like a new startup, but what they do is they're like the digital equivalent of a nosy neighbor who
Yeah.
listens through the walls with like a glass cup.
Okay.
And according to their pitch, they're helping companies get a read on employee sentiment in real time. Because who wants to wait for the annual survey, right? Um, but basically, what they do is they're monitoring. And can you remember that movie Minority Report,
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
where you
Tom
get like a
Cruise. Tom Cruise.
where you get like a thought crime or
Yeah.
something? Well, this AI is basically kind of watching you, and it's kind of guessing your attitude about things, and it's making a report about it, and it's communicating with the employer. So, if you're just like typing to somebody on chat, oh boy, we got to go to this meeting. You might get a check mark on your employee social credit score, if you will. So anyway, this company is monitoring, making reports, and they say that they're not attaching names to the data. They're not going to say, "Oh, Steve didn't like uh, the sandwich he got at the employee appreciation, you know, day lunch." Um, they're not going to say it was Steve, but they're going to say an employee in, this department did not like it.
Or if somebody
Um,
stole some pencils and he was
right,
bragging about it on the phone.
right. And there's like, you know, this employee needs an attitude adjustment, but we're not going to name who he is. But he works in this department. You could drill into the metrics and find out who it is.
Wow.
But they
Yeah, that
won't.
is actually scary. I mean, because you work in a work environment, and I think by law they're able to monitor these things because it's their product.
It
So
is, but it's kind of like I don't know. There's something about being a human being that, in order to be happy, you can't be worried and looking over your shoulder all the time about like I don't know. Can you imagine living in some countries where, take North Korea for example, if you don't smile wide enough, if you don't cheer X number of times, you get like punished, put away somewhere, and you get re-educated. And I know that's extreme, and no one's saying that like that is what they're immediately going to do, but I don't know. There's a when you hire humans to work for you, you kind of want to treat them like humans. Is
sure. Yeah, but
and
at the same time, I can see their point though, is because you sometimes really don't know what's in the back of people's minds. Uh, Even though you hire them and this and they did a background check on somebody,
mhm,
sometimes you don't know who they really, really are. You're not going to know. You don't know if they're going to be a risk to the
right,
workforce. You just don't know these things.
yeah. It's kind of like a slippery slope.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
kind
damn you
of
do, damn you don't kind of situation.
and it gets into the power of AI, right? Where AI is capable of doing things at quicker speeds, and I'm not going to say more accurately, but more specifically, given whatever instructions it's given, it will do it. It'll get better at doing it, and then all of a sudden, you've got a machine beginning to make the decisions about who you are and what you are as a human are about. And then you start answering to the machine. It's sort of like a slippery slope of where does that go? Take
Right.
it and magnify it at a government level. And now you've got the AI monitoring, you on a level of what you do in your private email and your private messaging, you know,
Hmm.
and then it starts to decide who's a good person, who's not a good person.
Right.
No.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
interesting article. And so, have you noticed there's this huge glare on my face? I have a
is
hole
that
in.
the Lord?
Steve,
Are you being visited by?
are you, are you being visited by aliens? No, I have this hole in one of my blinds, and it's coming through. I don't know how this hole happened, but I don't know. It is what it is. All
You
right, so
got like it was a Mothman chewing a
let's.
hole in your
It's an
grave.
alien. They're going to probe me later.
Is
They're
that
shooting in a
no?
light.
Bob Anderson chewed a hole in your in your hurting.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna move on to my article. This is a very interesting article. I hope you'll enjoy. All
That's
right. What
a
we have
toilet.
here
Oh,
is a guy by the name of Bob had always joked about that his old house located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin was haunted, but he never expected ghostly encounters to extend to his bathroom.
mm.
Every time he sat down in the toilet, strange noises would echo through the pipes and the toilet paper would mysteriously unravel. At first, he was spooked, but eventually he decided to embrace it. He started leaving a spare roll of toilet paper as an offering to a mischievous ghost. And soon enough, the toilet became the talk of the neighborhood. With everyone eager to experience the haunted bathroom, Bob even considered charging admission, as you can see here. He has a little sign right there. He's going to charge admission. He is allowing people to sit on the toilet and use his facility in his home.
Not a good idea.
Maybe not, because you know what? Not only are you going to be haunted by the sounds in your toilet, you might even get haunted by something called an STD.
Oh,
Ooh, that's the gift that keeps on giving, kids.
like if you sit on a. I thought that was like an old wives' tale that you can
I
catch
don't
it from
know,
a
man.
toilet.
All I know is that, or you get a pimple somewhere.
I heard you can get pregnant if you sit on a dirty toilet.
Oh, really? Wow, that's
My grandma
different
told me.
too. Your grandma.
I was like, Grandma, I'm a guy. I can't get pregnant.
Did you say, "Hey, grandma, how did you know about that?"
She's like, that's how. That's how you came up here.
That's how my dad was born.
Yeah, that's how my dad was born.
So that's my little news thing. And
That's
like I
creepy.
said, what's that?
That's creepy, dude. I mean, don't be charging people to come in your house, and I mean, I could see like a haunted outhouse, like
No, but
one
they're
of
coming
those
in the house.
porta
Yeah,
johns.
they're coming into his home, and he's charging them money to use his toilet. Yeah, I
That's
was going to use
gross.
a different word, but I didn't. I caught myself.
I mean, if you're constipated, it might be nice to go into a haunted bathroom and get the crap scared out of you.
Oh, man, look at you. Look at you. Look at you.
Hmm.
All right. So, up next, we had the great pleasure of being able to talk with Mr. Chris Fleming. He is on the show called Haunted Ireland, and he was on a show called Haunted Scotland. He's actually been on many shows, always appearing on many paranormal, supernatural shows. The other thing a lot of people don't know is he is a very, very good artist.
Hmm.
I had the pleasure of meeting him last year at one of Jack's festivals. It's one of his
Hmm.
conventions. And just a very nice guy. And we had the great pleasure, me and Steve. We almost had, I think, almost like an hour and a half to 2 hour conversation with him.
Oh
I know
yeah.
it was a long conversation. We went into so many things, ladies and gentlemen. Next, we went into conversations of the paranormal, the supernatural, the haunted Ireland, the haunted Scotland. I'm going to tell you something. I really enjoyed having a great conversation with him, Steve. It was
Oh
just
yeah.
really good.
It was a great conversation. Great artwork. Chris has got a great personality. Super easy to talk to. Super informative.
Yeah.
And it's no wonder why he's on so many shows. The guy's great.
Oh, yeah. So up next, we're going to have Mr. Chris Fleming on. And so stand by. And as always, boys and girls, boo.
Boo.
Hey there. If you're on the hunt for some captivating podcasts about the supernatural, paranormal, aliens, or anything that will send shivers down your spine, the Paranormal Guys Podcast has you covered. Find them on various streaming platforms, and don't forget to check out them on YouTube channel at Graveside Paranormal. Happy listening, and boom.
And now, back to the Paranormal Guys podcast.
All right, we're back, Steve. Thank you for all those messages from Graveside Paranormal and the Paranormal Guys podcast that is located here, and all the other little outlets that are streamed through, like Spotify, Anchor FM, all those Apple podcasts, all those streamings that you can go on. And also, if you go to on our YouTube channel, gravesideparanormal.com, then you're able to see the video that we put up, because we try to show all the evidence when people present us with evidence, so that you, the listener, can also see as well as hear all we're going to do. Now, Steve,
and give us comments as well.
Comments. We appreciate comments. We
nice ones if you can.
Yeah, if you could, please. Appreciate that. So we have Mr. Chris Fleming. Very nice guy. I met him last year at Jack Chavez's event, his Paracon. You know Jack. We've had Jack on a couple times here. We talked about like cryptids and stuff like that and other things. Chris Fleming is an artist, a medium, a paranormal researcher, television personality for many paranormal shows like the one we're going to talk about today, Haunted Ireland. Chris is also a public speaker. He has written numerous articles and produced various print and online publications on topics of the paranormal activity and psychic phenomenon. Haunted Ireland, we are going to be talking about tonight, as well as get to know Chris a little bit more. So I want to welcome in Chris at this time. Chris, welcome into the Paranormal Guys podcast.
Hey, Neil, Steve, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. I'm a giver. So, Chris, I met you last year, and you and I were like right next to each other. I had the luck, the blessing to be able to meet you last year. And the one thing,
who's this guy?
Is that you are quite the artist, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we pulled a couple of pictures. I want to show the people some of these pictures that you've drawn, and I think that some of them are from the latest show that you did about Haunted Ireland. Steve, can you pick up picture one, please?
We have this
one.
Oh,
that one, yeah.
Now, this one here, I really, really enjoyed.
Thank you. Yeah, the colors are important.
Now, which castle did you think of when you drew this one?
It's not a specific castle, because we went to several different castles. And the thing is, I like to create sometimes just an unknown, but when I used to do Help My House is Haunted, I used to go on these walks all the time. We'd sometimes go with a walk with my other team members, or a walk on my own, go for a walk. It's like something I had to do frequently. It was a way to de-stress and cleanse myself. And I'd walked around sometimes to see some of these castles that were just left dilapidated. They were just completely falling apart and they were abandoned. And we got to go visit some of them just walking around in our off time. And then a couple times I would walk too, and I would see this small little castle type church that was in a graveyard. And the grass was probably the greenest lime green I've ever seen. There was all these tombstones. There was crows everywhere. I've actually have it on video because I was filming it. I fell in love with it. And it looked very much like this, like an old church. And I walked up to it, and I remember I was by the doors, this big wooden door with this big metal knocker with a face on it, right? And I go, hello, right? I don't hear anything. But when I played the video back later, it was like, you're this, hello.
Really?
Like a voice responded, which was a ghost. And I'm like, oh my God, I would have loved to go on in there and speak. So for me, it's like the lone traveler. You're going to these places and you're wondering if there's anybody still there, not physically, but spiritually. Right. And that's kind of why I did this, is I wanted to have that little adventurer. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, all that type of stuff. But when it comes to the paranormal, you visit a lot of these amazing places. And most of the places we get to investigate are places that obviously historically people know about. But what fascinates me, and I found to be very active too, are the places that no one doesn't, that they don't know about. Mm-hmm. And that's like why I created something like this. It's a combination of all those things. And if you look to the lower right-hand corner, it looks like an alien skull, doesn't it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So you talk about the old historical worshiping and the megaliths and stuff like that, is I want to kind of put something in that, like that in there. Because when I've been to Scotland and Ireland, they have these standing stones. And they always wonder, was it the Druids? Was it certain people that did rituals and stuff? What was the purpose? Well, for me, it was like when you look at Easter Island, you look at all these places, I believe some of these things are actually markers from the gods, or they were set up to communicate with the gods from the other side, from the universe and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of put that in there, just like a little Easter egg.
Right.
No one's noticed it though. It's like,
No, actually, just so you know, I was like this. I go, that looks like an oblong type skull. I'm like, what?
Yep.
But I know that you like comics. You're more of a Marvel guy.
Yeah, totally. But I've been reading Image, and I've been reading some other comics that I've been reading that are fascinating. I started collecting comics again about a year ago.
Oh yeah.
Because a buddy of mine, Keith, he owns Keith's Comics in Schaumburg, Illinois. And I've known him actually since I was a little kid. I used to go to Moondogs Comics, which was in Mount Prospect. My dad used to take me there. And Keith used to work there, and then eventually worked for another additional store franchise. And then he started his own store. But I'm like, Keith, I'm going to start reading comics again. I said, because my goal is I want to write one of my own comics. I want to do my own comics in the future. But in the meantime, I want to kind of get back into it. There's a lot of supernatural, paranormal comics that have come out. The big thing right now is a lot of horror and supernatural characters and storylines. So I've been reading some of those. Like Phantom Lore is one that I like. It's really cool. The woman can see ghosts, and these other people can see ghosts. And her father was like a pastor or a priest. And there's a couple other ones that I'm reading right now too. It's Ghost Lore and Phantom something that I'm reading. And then Conan the Barbarian came out again. So I like some of that.
Conan the Barbarian. Dude.
Oh my God, brand new. Just came out, but it's like the old John Buscema and Ernie Chan type artwork.
So when I was working at the jail years ago, back in the 90s, right? My buddy would come in with the old Conan the Barbarian paperback books. He said, Neil, he goes, read these.
Robert E. Howard, yeah.
And I'm like this. I'm like, for that moment in time, it took me back to a different era in my head and of Samaria. And I'm like this. I'm like this. Oh my God! All this storyline of Conan the Barbarian. For that little moment in time, I was there, man. Just in my head.
It's amazing.
Skulls and
Yeah, Robert E. Howard was able to, and I can't remember the exact details, but I was reading something where I don't know if he took hallucinogenics or he would go into this meditative state of other realms, access it, and then write about it. And that became a lot of his story. Some people thought he had a mental problem or whatever. And I can't remember the exact details, so please don't quote me on this. But it was something extraordinary to that effect. And, for those that have read some of his storylines, he takes certain time periods, builds a whole world around it, very similar to Game of Thrones. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I believe that, the guy that wrote Game of Thrones, forgot his name, but I believe he was a fan of Robert E. Howard, and creates all these characters and these different countries and realms and leaders and kings and stuff around it, very similar to what Robert E. Howard did. Mm-hmm. And it just amazes me that no one has really gone out there and created a really good, effective series based around some of his characters. Of course, we remember Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan, and then Conan the Destroyer. And Arnold's always wanted to do King Conan, which we've always wanted because we got to see that at the very end of the first movie. You see King Conan, right? And the fact it's probably never going to get done is just really frustrating because I loved King Conan series as well, where he's older and he's a king. So it's these storylines that have always fascinated me because, and we have the paranormal where we deal with these other realms and these other dimensions. But then you have, of course, the fantasy aspect, but you got to wonder what part of that fantasy aspect has come from collective consciousness, actual realms that exist, whether it's Lemuria, whether it's Atlantis, whether it's other realms and countries and parts of the world that existed that have been either wiped out and we don't know about, or what they really did. Like when you look at Iraq, which used to be Samaria, okay, not Cimeria like Conan, which was Samaria. It's slightly different, but the actual Samaria, you have very like Egyptian, Aztec type, where they had these pyramids and stuff, and they used to worship the gods that came from space that would give them all this stuff. And you can see the hieroglyphics and some of the writings of them where these gods came, and whether they very similar to what the Egyptians had, but they're one of the oldest known texts in scripture that we have is from the Sumerians. So you would think would be so fantasy-like, but now what we're finding out, of course, with all the whistleblowers and everything else talking about these existences, that they were right. They were seeing these beings from the stars and they were coming down, and that's fascinated me. So it's like, who's to say that maybe these other dimensions or places in some form, shape or form existed where there were similar heroes or heroes that were adopted through this meditative consciousness. Of course, it's fantasy when we read it and everything, but what parts of it created are from some type of reality?
Or what if, not to get totally off the hook, but I mean, we're talking about it.
Yeah, right.
What about reincarnation? What if all of a sudden people's memories come to light from being reincarnated and they take it to the storyboard and they just start writing a fantasy in their head,
Of course.
a fantasy that was in their head, but maybe it was from a different time, a different place, maybe even a different world, if I may go so far out. And all of a sudden they take paper to pen.
Well, I've had past life regressions done, okay? Going back to 20 years ago, and then I had one done 2 years ago. And the one I had 2 years ago, which was extraordinary because it's not anything that I've ever really thought of at any time, was she just came out of a course that she took from Dolores Cannon's daughter that had been teaching past life regressions. Well, I had regressions done from Dolores Cannon back in 99 and 2000, which were actually, they weren't the first one I'd ever had done. It was probably the third or fourth. But what was uncovered there to me was extraordinary in regarding certain lives I've had as a Roman, Samaria, and even this one that I just found out where I was on an island and the Spaniards came with their ships. We were smaller, shorter people. So when we saw them get off the ships, we never seen them before. We were farmers and we got our pitchforks. Next, there are these really tall men standing wearing this garb and football pads and helmets that were like, who are these people? Right. And they said, we want you, we're going to take over your island. And we're like, no, well, you need to sign this from Spain that this is now ownership of Spain. And we wouldn't do it. So they started cutting off our heads. And then they took our women and children and they put them on the ships. And I remember I was like the third or fourth person, got my head cut off. And I remember my spirit seeing my wife and my kids be taken away. And I was just, devastated. Then during the regression, I always wanted to know what happened to them. They allowed me to see what happened. And I see one of the ships out of the 3 or 4 ships they had, storms came and it sunk. And I see not only the person that cut my head off and that took my children, but I saw my wife and children drown and go to the dark depths of the ocean. And I was emotional. But then this spirit comes forward in the regression, who was that soldier from Spain asking for forgiveness, saying, I'm sorry, but please forgive me for what I did to you, your family, and your people. But it was, I thought I was doing the right thing because I was doing it for Spain. And I find out as I see this soul, he's one of my good friends in this life, to where I saved a situation. I saved his daughter in a situation, and who's now his wife, something that happened a long time ago. And also, I became like best man and stuff like that at his wedding. So you see this stuff, how it plays out in this reality to like, oh my gosh. And the first time I ever met him, he wanted to kill me. Okay. We almost got in a fight at a bar. First thing we want to get in a fight because he thought I was hitting on his girlfriend, but I was just talking to her. So it's interesting how the dynamics change in another reality. And then that person becomes your friend, even though in the other life, they killed you and they killed your family. So it made me realize that, yeah. But I forgave his soul, that fragment of him from the past that was still lingering, that had never been forgiven and stuck here, but I realized, oh my God, you are this person in this life. Like, how's that? It's crazy. And several other lives I've had, girlfriends, one of my best friends in this life, have all played part in some of these other lives. To see who they were and what the connection was, it's just extraordinary. But then it identifies, like the one friend I have in this life, this other guy, first time we got introduced to each other my freshman year in high school, we shook hands. We're like, God, I feel like I've always known you. We instantly became best friends. You know why? Because in the Roman era, he was my older brother. In the Roman era, he died at war. So I became a Roman. And then when I died from the Picts, because they jumped out of the trees and the spear went right through me, he was the first person to greet me on the other side. I'm like, how are you greeting me on the other side? Because you're my best friend in this life. He goes, you don't understand how time works. There's no such thing as time on the other side. We're all on the other side. We go somewhere to experience something, but it happens like that. And we come back. So we're always here in this other reality. Just a fragment of us goes and has these other existences. So I've learned a lot from the past life regressions in understanding what time is and how our lives are actually being played out. It's just a fragment of us. It's not the entirety of us.
I would truly like to have something like that done. We've had guests on and we talked about reincarnation, me and Steve, and the lady who we were talking about, Carla Bogny Kidd. Carla Bogny Kidd. She said that me and Steve were monks back in the day, and we've known each other for a long time.
I could see it.
Well, we weren't like kung fu monks. We were religious monks, and
we were like religious monks, and we were
like at least us we were kung fu
monks.
Yeah, Ninja Turtles.
I got moves, man. Come on now.
What was that? What was that series that was on? where the nuns have these special abilities like the turtles. All this, I loved the series. I think it was 1 or 2 series.
Hold on, that was
And the
on Showtime or HBO or something, right?
No, I think it was on either Netflix or Prime. And
No,
the
you're
woman
right.
that plays the
That
actress
last
just
summer, it was
married
out
the
last
guy
summer, it was
that's
out.
Captain America. She just married the guy that's Captain America.
Yeah, I
The main
forget
star,
what
who's
the
the
name of
nun.
the show was, but I remember.
Warrior Nun, right?
Okay,
Warrior
yeah.
Nun.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
such a great series. I loved
Was
it.
it really?
Yeah, plus I had a crush on the lead. She's gorgeous.
Well,
So she just married Captain America, so can't compete with that.
can't compete with Captain America, my friend. Ain't gonna
So,
happen.
how many times have you been regressed, Chris?
Let's see. The first time would have been right around the 90s,
Mhm.
beginning of the 90s. The other time was 99. So 1, 2, 3. Adam Bly regressed me.
Mhm.
4 to my very first life. Dolores Cannon, 5, 6, 7. I believe it's been 8 times
Oh wow.
to past
And-
life. Yeah.
And how
You
many?
gotta give me the contact for this person because I'd really.
Oh, they're all different people I've been with. Well, Dolores
I-
Cannon passed
Yeah.
away. Adam Bly actually works for the Roman Catholic Church now, so he's no longer a counselor doing that stuff.
Okay.
The one psychologist I had done went back to my childhood where I saw the ghosts and demons and stuff like that. He was one of the first to regress me. And then there was a woman in the city of Chicago that regressed me back to the Roman era and also
Mhm.
took me into the future where I saw this devastation, which was crazy.
Interesting.
I wish I would have kept her name. The other person, I didn't really get too good results. She is in Illinois. I could get you her name. When she tried to take me, there was this alien gray that was preventing me from going further. And then all of a sudden Jesus shows up and removes the alien. And it was like,
Nice.
that was pretty much all I got out of that regression. I couldn't access some of these realms as if something was not allowing me to. So I was disappointed with that. Oh, the other woman though, yeah, I could get her name. She's the one that took me to the Spaniard thing.
Mhm.
So Steve's actually Steve by trade is a hypnotist.
Well,
Oh,
I
cool.
don't do regression. Haven't done regression work. I help people quit smoking
Oh, that's good.
and stuff. Yeah. But I do know a lot of people in the Chicago area who do past life regression work. Larry Garrett is a pretty famous hypnotist in Chicago, and he would be somebody I would recommend doing that kind of work. But I've got a question for you, Chris.
Yeah.
You've been through. Do you think you've just begun to scratch the surface on the lives you've lived, or do you think you've gone through the majority of them? Or
Well, there was always a purpose and intent to find out something within my life. Like, for example, I can't remember. I have it recorded in my notes in my journal why the Spaniard thing came up. The Roman thing was because I would always be afraid of failure, and I would always start doing something and then just stop doing it because I felt like I was going to fail anyway. And that was because the Roman thing. Because what had happened is my brother had died at war. I was devastated, so I wanted to become a Roman to go fight these other countries. Rome became so powerful that we became way too powerful that we started mistreating our own people because we thought we should be worshipped because we were just like the most powerful, country out there. But we had never actually, I had to do research after this and realize we had never really fully dominated the Picts because the Picts were so good at hiding in the forest. So at that time, I didn't have any family or anything because I was so devoted to Rome and to the military. The 2 other soldiers I was with had lost people. So we're like, you know what? We don't want to be Roman soldiers anymore. We don't like it here. We don't like what we're doing to our own people. We want to leave. Well, you can't leave because the fact otherwise you'd be killed. They'll kill you. So we decided one night to leave and we left, right? We left the country. During that time, we spent about 3 months on the road, surviving off the land. And we came in contact with these types of people that had carriages and carts, and they were like some type of gypsies. So we decided, we made agreement with them that we'd walk them and kind of protect them, While we were doing that, we ventured off a little bit into this forest, and little did we know there was picks up in the trees. Because I remember I'm going through the forest, we're walking, just kind of looking at the area, making sure it's okay. And I hear something, I look up, I'll never forget this. And I see this pick go, and he jumps down, and his spirit goes right through me, and the sunlight's coming through the trees. And I'm looking, I'm like, and I remember I stopped breathing because I'm choking on my blood. And all of a sudden my soul goes out of my body. I go up through the trees, through the light. And as I go in the light, the dimension changes. And there's my buddy from this life saying I was his brother. So I realized that I felt so responsible to these other 2 soldiers that I had talked them out of leaving Rome. We got to go get a better life, this and that. We died 3 months later from the Picts, and that we were supposed to protect these gypsies, and I honestly do not know what happened to them, because at that point, everything was irrelevant when you leave your body. And it's just, where am I going? Who am I? Oh my God, this is who I truly am. And it's remarkable. So for me, it was like, oh, because I failed and I felt like I failed them, that it's hard for me to take certain risks because I died, so that was one thing. And then another one, I was in a relationship, this one girl, Christine, I was like totally in love with her. We went out for like almost a year and a half, 2 years. And I could tell she didn't really love me anymore, this and that. And I had a hard time letting go. So I went to psychological counseling and this and that, because I was just devastated and I could not shake it. I was having a hard time going to work. I fell into huge depression. Wow. And I even confronted my mom, and my stepdad. And I told them, I need help. I said, I need help. I'm smart enough to realize that. So I went to so many different counselors and I wasn't getting any better. And then someone suggested, would you like to try something alternative? And I go, what do you mean? I think this was one of my first regressions. We're going to go back and try to figure out, it must be something from a past life. Oh my God. I've got the cassette somewhere. I remember I let one of my friends borrow it. And I think he gave it back to me. I can't remember because it's so long ago, because I hope I still have it, because it's recorded. I went back in time. I was like some type of Viking soldier, right? And I was a badass. I mean, I'd go to war. My whole life was going to war and I got paid for it, So I'd go to war, be gone for months or half a year, and I'd come back. And I remember seeing myself, this long beard and everything. And I'd go to the pub, the bars, whatever there was in this town. Was my hometown. I would come back from a great war, and some of us would come back, some of us wouldn't, but I always came back. And there was a barmaid that I fell in love with, right? So whenever I would go to battle, I thought about her. I would come back because I had to come back to see her, right? So I came back to see her, and she was always there waiting for me. But what had happened at one point was I came back and something wasn't right. There was some other soldier or warrior from somewhere else that came in that raped her. And she didn't want to tell me. She was acting weird. And then she tells me, and then I'm really upset. So then it kind of skips a beat. So I don't know exactly what happened, because then I see her in a barn. She's killed. She has a sword through her eye and one through her leg, and she's propped up on the side of the wall, stuck there. And I was like devastated, right? So I go to seek him out to fight him, and we start fighting, right? And it's like to the death. But as we're fighting, even though I was besting him, I could see that my higher self saying, you could beat him, you're going to beat him. But then something shifted. I started thinking about her because he says some stuff about her. And I got into this depression and realized the whole time I went to war and fought and come back was to be with her. Now that she's gone, what's the point? I don't want to be here anymore. So as he went to thrust, I normally would have blocked it. I stepped into the sword on purpose because I realized, I just want to die. And as I was dying, I leave my body, I go to the other side, and she's there. She goes, what did you do? I go, well, now I can be with you. She's like, no, you don't understand. You were supposed to do all these other things in your life. Now you ended it because of me. Now we have to go back and do it all over again. She goes, don't you realize you can't do that? And I'm like, what? Oh, she's that same person in this life. And here's the remarkable part, okay, is the guy that I fought with was her previous boyfriend when I started going out with her, and he was always trying to get back with her. He wanted to kill me because I didn't know this at the time, but then someone told me. And then I was at a bar one night, and we were broken up, and we going back and forth. Her girlfriend says, oh my God, he's here. He's here. He's going to kill you. I ain't nobody going to kill me, because I was in a great shape. I fought. I took martial arts. I did all this stuff. I was a hell of a fighter. He walks up to me, and I stand up. He looks at me and goes, oh, you're a lot bigger than I thought you were. He's like, want to go do a shot? I said, yeah, let's go do a shot. Here's the crazy thing. I felt like I always knew him. And there was this turning point, right? We go do a shot. He goes, I wanted to kill you. I said, I don't think you can kill me, man. And he's like, but you know what? He's like, F her and this and that. I'm doing really good in my life and this and that. So let's just, toast to our lives and our futures. And may we live out our lives the best we can without her. And we toasted, and he walked away and never saw him again. Right. Little did I know at the time, the regression was he was always called the lion, even though I use a lion a lot in my life too. I had a different, they call a little, I forget what they call a little icon or whatever it is, like a family emblem. Mine was like a hand going down with the sword, almost like an anvil. And his was the side face of a lion. Okay. That was his family. That was his crest, right?
Okay. Right.
I find out she used to always call him the lion in this life, right?
Hmm.
And she has a birthmark. She had an imperfection slightly in her eye, and she had a birthmark in her leg. The two areas where the swords were, where she was killed in that life.
They say a
Wow.
lot about that a lot of birthmarks are from the previous life of the area that you died or had the pain in.
And here was the thing: is in this life, I was like, I had contemplated suicide because I was so depressed. But I was supposed to go through this life to not do it, to overcome it because of the three characters that played the part: myself, him, and her. And we were supposed to, in a completely different scenario, overcome it instead of what happened in that previous life. We played it out and we overcame it. And I had separated from her. We tried to be friends at one point. She started seeing somebody else, but it was too difficult for me. And the universe says, no, you need to separate. Otherwise, you're going to guys go back and forth, back and forth. So I completely cut her off. And then years later, when I started doing paranormal shows, she saw me. She wrote to me, devastated. She's like, you know what? I never loved myself, which is why I couldn't love you. But I'm so happy to see you doing these things in your life because I know you're always passionate about it. And I said, I want to thank you for not getting back with me, because I think if we did, I wouldn't be doing the things I am doing today. So there was this love, admiration, and respect that, you know what, you move on. And plus, I had something other supernatural happen between her where she appeared to me and I appeared to her, our souls. And we said, we need to get on with our lives because otherwise we're going to replicate what happened before. Because sometimes people in our lives have to go their separate ways. Once they have overcome the karmic tie and resolved it, then they get on with their life. So for me, it was the most profound and extraordinary because I had the proof of all three of us within this life that had played a part in a previous life. We were almost going to get in a fight and a battle to the death again because he was jealous and upset. But then we realized, you know what? This time we're not because of her. Isn't that extraordinary?
You know what?
That is.
I have to say this about the whole story and how you present it. I'm appreciative that you're so honest about and deep about this story, man. I mean, this is really deep, honest story, and I think it's
a lot of my friends that went through this, in my mom and my sister, they know this story. You know what I mean? They don't know like all these other spiritual tie-ins and stuff. But it was one of the dark periods of my life, and but it was also became a very strong period of my life to overcome that and reshape this life the way that we were sent back to do, to make a different choice, free will.
I talk about that all the time. I talk about how we all have choice. We all have free will. You make a choice, and that's what it is going to be. Either be left or right or wrong. We all have it. That's the thing with, like, I talk about like earthbound spirits and stuff like that. Sometimes people, like, let's just say a house, we'll say in the countryside area. Okay. Someone builds this house. They build it with their own two hands, and they do it such heart and soul that's put inside that home. And then one day we get older and then we pass. But yet we made a choice because I'm in love so much with this house. I'm not going anywhere else because this is where I'm at. This is my heaven, you know? And I explain to people is like, they say, why does this happen? I go, sometimes we make choice, just like in the Lord told us, at least my belief, made a choice. We make choice of doing what we want to do. Even when we die, we have choice. And I'm a big believer in that.
Well, the thing too is, they say, souls sometimes come down together and they travel together and they have different lives and experiences one another. Psychologically, with all the counselors and psychiatrists and everything that I saw, I was even put on antidepressants and stuff like that. It didn't work. Nothing worked because there was a karmic tie. Yet someone was knowledgeable enough to say, there's something else going on or deeper that we don't understand. And it was because we had not resolved something in a previous life. What was necessary was for us to resolve this and let one another go without feeling that, well, someone needs to die here because we can't move on, like what happened in that life of the Viking era. So it was mind blowing. But once we both let go and forgave each other and understood the situation, it was like a big weight was lifted. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I became a completely different person. Everybody knew me was like, you're such a different person now.
Forgiveness is transformative.
Yeah,
it'll change you.
It becomes contagious. And I tell people this. I tell them about forgiveness. I said, don't forget about the things that happened. I'm not telling you to forget the moment or what happened to you. I'm looking for you to find it in your heart to express and project it out of forgiveness. The reason why is because not only are you forgiving them and helping yourself, but that person there is going to be able to forgive someone else, and it becomes contagious. And when it becomes contagious, we all start doing it, and we all kind of live a little bit better life. That's my belief.
Well, yeah, the thing was I had lost her once in a previous life, and I didn't want to lose her in this life. And it's really, we have to realize it's not about us. It's about everybody involved. The fact that he healed, I healed, and whether she healed or not, I haven't talked to her in a long time. The fact of the matter is that, we have other lives my guides told me at the one point is like, she has all these other experiences that you can't teach her. So, you have to let go, and she's got to let go. So how is she going to learn all these things if you can't play a part in it and you're not meant to play a part in it? So you have to allow her and love her enough to let her go experience those things. And then in another life, another time, if you guys both want, you guys can have a life together. But when you really care about a soul, that's what's important.
Exactly.
You really care about a soul, you let that soul go experience itself and its interactions with others that it's supposed to experience. You can't take that away, because then you're taking away the creator's purpose in the line of work, as well as that soul purpose.
Right.
And that's a karmic tie, man. You don't want to have to come back and replicate that whole drama.
Yeah, you keep going through time.
Which we did, but we corrected it.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Once again, I appreciate you telling me that story.
Was this the catalyst for you, Chris, to get into the paranormal? This whole
No. At the time I was publishing a paranormal magazine, Unknown magazine, back in the 90s.
Interesting. Yeah, because that'd be enough
that.
that'd be enough for somebody to do.
Well, here's the thing too. She was a
regression.
very, I don't want to say she was a controlling person, but at the time I gave up the magazine because of her. Because I was in the mortgage business, seeing her, she's like, one's got to go because you're not spending enough time with me, this and that and everything else, right? And I told her, well, one day my guys are telling me I'm going to be on TV doing something like my magazine. And sure enough, I was, several years later, 3 years later, actually. So when she saw me on TV, she's like, oh my God, he told me this. But the thing was, the universe says she can't be with you because she's going to take you away from that. She's very controlling and insecure, that she doesn't want you, doing all these other things because it takes attention away from her. That's why you can't be with her, because you have a purpose and you have these things to do. So no, I've been in the paranormal ever since I was a kid. I was doing this poster right here from 1976 was the first documentary I saw that proved that ghosts exist. And I told my mom, because our house was haunted, we used to do the Ouija board and stuff.
Oh boy.
And they said ghosts are real. We're going to prove it. And there are scientists that are talking to ghosts. I'm like, what? Capturing their voices. And I'm like, oh my God, we got to watch this, Mom. So my mom let me watch it. And it showed these scientists and individuals capturing ghost voices at graveyards and other haunted places.
Right. Yeah.
That made me go ask my dad to get a recorder. And he came home 2 weeks later with a reel-to-reel recorder. So I captured my first EVP back in 1976. And it was either 76 or 77. What's the year on this? Yeah, 76, correct. Boom, bingo. 1976. So I caught my first EVP in 1976 on my reel-to-reel recorder. And, I was only about 8 years old. And it was shocking. I was playing to all the kids around the neighborhood and everything like that. And, parents were getting freaked out. Then upgraded to a big boom box that came out 77, 78. Well, I had a smaller recorder too that I would take with the cassette, and then I got the boom box. So I went through 2 other cassette recorders and stuff that I recorded stuff that I got. I have one of the other original recordings I got of EVPs from 1977, 78 with my voice, asking spirit stuff. So I have those recordings. But I wish I had the reel-to-reel. But back then, you didn't know how to transfer reel-to-reel to something else. And we sold it at a garage sale. And I remember told the guy, I got ghost voices on there. He's like, oh, yeah. I wish to God, I didn't know years later I'd be doing this. Right. I wish to God I kept it. I would have had all the recordings of me talking to the Ouija board and spirits and the voices you would have heard replying. But stupid me was like, let's get rid of it.
You're young. We
don't
don't realize things. We're ignorant to that when we're young.
I wish I had all those. I wish I had the second recorder still. I wish I had the boom box. I wish I never got rid of that stuff.
So I haven't really ever told anybody this, but now that you're bringing this up, I don't tell a lot of people a lot of things. But when you and I are about the same age. Me, you, and Steve, we're all the same age. When I used to do it.
What, 35?
26?
Just getting ready for song weather. Yeah. So I used to take the stereo and put it on AM and take it all the way over to listen to, and I would ask questions.
Static, yeah, the TV white noise I used to do too.
Like you, 1976. This was the 70s, maybe early 80s. I was doing this.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, I was doing it. I don't know if maybe I was watching too much TV or this. or
What's
that.
wrong with that little Neil boy? I don't know. He's always listening to static. There's something wrong with his brain. He's got static going on. No wonder he never pays attention.
No, my report card said so. So I would do that, and these
White noise, boy.
But it was just odd that you say that, and I was.
It explains a lot there, Neil. It's always hearing stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I mess with you. No, that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's odd. Like I used to love. You remember the show Sightings?
Oh God, yeah, I used to watch that.
See,
I used to watch In Search of.
Yeah.
I used to go to the movies with my buddies, like in the early 1970s, to see those Bigfoot movies, and I was like 5, 6 years old.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I was talking that we had Tim Banal.
Bigfoot is real,
right?
Yeah.
So we had Tim Banal on the other day, and we were talking to him. Very nice guy, and the editor of Coast to Coast AM. And I was talking to him, and he never heard of the show Sightings. I understood he was like,
I love that show.
That show there was actually because I remember watching the Sally House. You remember watching the Sally House thing? And that was always my bucket list. So we went there. Have you ever gone to the Sally House?
Scratch? No.
Oh, you got to go.
I think I met, wasn't it the couple? The one guy got scratched. I met them early on when Dave Schrader used to do his events, the Darkness Radio events back in like between 07 to like 2012. I met them. They were at one of the events.
I'm telling you, go to that Sally House. There's two definite entities inside that house. One is definitely stronger than the other one because, like yourself, you feel it coming in through the back of your neck when they try to come in through the base of your neck, and you can feel them entering in. You start taking on, how can I put it, their emotions.
Oh yeah, I know that.
And when you start taking on their emotions, you have to know and recognize that this is happening. And when me and Steve were there, we were getting some good SLS with these things that were like getting larger inside the room. And it's definitely, there's these two entities that are definitely inside the house. It's one of the things. Let me ask you this: when you
the whole town of Atchison,
Atchison, Kansas, yeah. So we went inside here, and we've done it before. We've made this mistake, and I make lots of mistakes, and that's just part of evolving in this. Is that when I recognize what something is, and I call it out for what it truly is, like a manipulative spirit, pretending it's something. All of a sudden, all the action stops.
Yep.
Everything ends.
It's
so,
like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden, for whatever reason, because like, take for instance, you know where the Irish Legend is, right over on Archer Avenue, right? The restaurant. So I used to do tours out of there, right? And there would be supposedly a little boy named Adam that was down in the basement, supposed to be illegitimate child of Al Capone. Okay, whatever. So, but what it was is when we ran an SB7 in there, I'd go, Adam, are you here? And we have it on recording. He goes, yes, I'm sick. A little child's voice. I'm like, holy shit, man.
That was a demon.
Yeah. So we would do tours and tours all month long, going back and forth. And then I said to Steve, I said, it's a manipulative spirit, Steve. I go, the more we want to play with it, the more it wants to play. I go, today we're going to call it out for what it is. And what happened, Steve?
Everything stopped.
Everything stopped.
No more voices from the little kid. No more. Even the SLS stuff stopped.
Everything
we got some really cool stuff there.
And we pulled the cord on it, man.
Right.
Can you imagine like some people listening to us talking about this, with the emotional change and everything? Come on, Marge, let's go to this place and get our emotions messed up.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff we mess with, some of the stuff, not everything it always happens, but some of the stuff, it messes you up, man. I was watching Nefarious, the movie yesterday. I've been wanting to watch it. And I sat there going, okay, the actor is replicating certain psychological disorders that people get. So he's basically watched and modeled himself over the psychological disorders that people get.
Sure.
But when they're talking about demon possession, everything, they nailed it. I mean, they were talking about what happens, and I'm sitting there going, wow. So as I'm watching this, I start feeling negative stuff coming around me because my mind is connected with it. And because I go into that realm with the work that I do, they're coming forward going, oh, like I go, get away. So I had to say prayers before I went to bed because it was attracting it.
Right.
But that movie was fascinating. some parts poorly acted, but the whole overall sense, which is something that I believe and I know in this community because I've been doing it long enough. I've worked with psychiatrists, I've worked with priests. We know people can get possessed. We know that people can be manipulated psychologically, thinking it's themselves or something's wrong with them, or
sure.
they have no knowledge of it and they can go do something bad. We know this.
Right. Yep.
And you look at some of the experts around the world that have dealt with this and studied this, even scientific data they have for over 2,000 cases or so in dealing with this, that a lot of psychological problems can be influenced or caused by negative entities. Not all of them. They came to a statistic of 80% of cases, but that when people have these issues and they do something, I mean, for example, look at all serial killers. They'll tell about the voices that are telling them to do this. All
Right.
serial killers will tell you that. Where are the voices coming from? Well, I can tell you how you could validate it, okay, to prove that there is an entity there. And the thing is that until we start accepting the fact, not religion, not fantasy, not myth, not legend, the fact that there are parasitic entities, there are and spirits that can manipulate, not everybody, but certain individuals and get them to do things they would not normally do, we're going to continue to have mental disorders in this world.
Right.
And I'm not saying,
and hate,
but not every mental disorder is caused by them. Everybody still has free will, but it's like the frog in the water. You know, if the frog jumps into hot water, it's going to jump right out. But if you slowly start to turn it, the frog doesn't know it's being cooked. We don't know we're being manipulated and controlled. Some people don't recognize that, and it just becomes who they are.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I dealt with psych criminals for 22 years.
Okay.
Working for a sheriff's department. And I actually came across 2 cases. I'm not going to say it on the recording or anything like that.
Right.
But I came across a guy one of the signs of like a possession, and people can say whatever they want, they believe or not believe. I don't care.
I don't care either. They haven't experienced it.
That's you. One of the signs of possession for me is it smells like a burnt rubber tire. And this individual, I had to go up to this individual to get him to go upstairs. They asked me to do it because I'm just used. I'm not trying to sound as a tough guy because I'm not. I'm trying to say is that they asked me to do it because I'm used to dealing with certain kinds of individuals. So I went up to him and I took him upstairs, and I could see he was very simple-minded. And I said, "Hey, buddy, do you want to just go to sleep?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Hey, you like superheroes?" He goes, "Yeah, mine's Superman." I go, "Mine's Batman." So we had a nice conversation. I took him upstairs. I go to put him inside of a cell before he's seen by psych and nurse and stuff like that. They don't even want to talk to him. They would say, "Gibby." Everybody just goes by last names, and they just call me Gibby. And they said, "Put him inside that cell." And I go, "All right." And he puts his hand on my shoulder. He goes, "We like you." I go, "Oh, thank you very much. I like you too." And so I put him inside there. The story goes on from there.
It's always we. Yeah, it's always we.
It's always that we. And sometime later, something happened to him where he died. Okay, but he was in a single cell. I could tell you personally later.
Yeah,
but he died inside there, and then after that effect that happened, book bags and stuff like that, it's always on camera, start flying off the shelves. It was totally weird. And like the lieutenant at the time, he calls me, he goes, "Gibby, come down here, man." He goes, "You gotta see this video." So I was like this. I was like, see, what I was working at is probably we get so many shadow people and so many things inside this place. It's unbelievable. All the evidence that I've actually gathered by working there, it's just an amazing thing. But I don't want to get off on that.
No, but I understand what you're saying. It's when they say we, and that's something we've experienced.
Yeah.
In certain cases, I just did one in Indiana several months ago, and this big guy, he says, "There's nothing you could do. There's no such thing as Jesus, no such thing as God." And he's saying all this stuff, and then got to a point he wouldn't even look at me. And then I said, I can't remember the exact word I said to him. I know I've got it recorded, and the other guy recorded it too. And he turns and says, "We're watching you," that type of thing. And I said, "It's always we." It's because you have one that goes in, but others are connected to it so they can see what's going on and experience what's going on. And then one can leave, another one can come in and pretend it's the same one, but it's a different one. They play games like that, or multiple can be in at the same time. I had a girl in 2005. She had 3 entities that were attached to her. And that was terrifying because she had 2 knives. She was either going to stab me or cut her own wrists. So I'd act quickly. But you have them where they, sometimes you have one entity takes over, but multiple will come in because with multiple, they feel they're controlling more, they're more dominating in that perception. But the one thing they hate is peace. They hate love.
Right.
And they'll play games. They'll say, "Oh, God doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. This doesn't exist." And they try to trick you and get you off to where you're questioning yourself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Stevie,
I'm never gonna trust anybody whose pronouns are they or them or we.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing.
Oh.
Well, have you ever seen? You want to get your mind blown? And I'll tell you this because this is really interesting. And I wanted to work on a project, but I came to a stall on this. Take a look at the videos with people that have taken the flocka drug, okay, which is a nasty drug. And these individuals,
like synthetic marijuana, is that what flocka?
Well, I don't know what the hell it is, but it's some type of synthetic drug.
Okay.
That completely destroys the life force and the conscious connection of the individual. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, some psychologists say, well, they're schizophrenic, they're going crazy, it's just all psychological. But you ask those that have taken the flocka, and you also look at the videos of them while they're under it, they're screaming and yelling that demonic entities are attacking them, tearing them apart.
Right.
And they all describe that, but then some of them get possessed by those entities, and you'll see them racing and put headfirst into a car, into a wall to destroy the physical body, because we know demonic entities want to destroy the human life and the human body. Mm-hmm. So you'll see the most extreme, violent, sadistic, and horrifying things you've ever seen when people have been on this drug. Mm-hmm. Now, that was something I was studying, discussing it with an individual regarding these types of cases because I wanted to do a documentary on it. Mm-hmm. Well, I got in a car accident in 2009, suffered a mild TBI, but then the neck injury is what caused a lot of pain. So I've been on muscle relaxers, pain pills, and stuff like that. And, nothing really helped. I went cold turkey for 2 years, not taking anything to kind of help. I just dealt with the pain. And then a buddy of mine, well, actually, oh God, I'm dead on certain people, but an individual in California who was on medical marijuana. We didn't have it legal yet in Illinois. Says you should try this. So I tried it that day. I said, I'm not into this stuff, drugs or anything, because I've always been straight on this. But he said, no, it's medical stuff. So try it. I tried it and I was like, wow, I feel better. And my neck's not really hurting too much, but I feel so much better over the pain, which is great. So I told my doctor about it in 2016. He was working on submitting it. So I was going to get my license for legally having medical marijuana. In the meantime, I had a friend in California that says, let's just see what you like. And he sent me a syringe of concentrate. Well, he wasn't specific. He tells me, he goes, just take a little bit, right? Well, what's a little bit? I have no idea. I've never done this before in my life. So my buddy's Leo's over at my house. He's hanging out. We made like a steak dinner, and we're talking. I said, I'm going to try this, and he smokes cannabis all the time, and I don't, because I said I want you to be here when I try it. So I put a whole 5 or 6 dabs on a cracker instead of putting one. And I'm sitting there and I take a bite and eat it. About an hour later, I said, I got to go upstairs and get something. As soon as I get up, mm-hmm. I stopped and came back in my seat and I see all these colors. I'm like, whoa. And as I'm moving my hand, I'm seeing outside the visual spectrum into electromagnetic field. And I'm seeing all these colors that are going, which is the life force. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit. He goes, oh, were you hallucinating? I said, dude, this is not a hallucination. I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. My consciousness is shifting and going into a different spectrum that I'm now witnessing and seeing. I said, this is bizarre. I got to move slow because my mind is moving so much faster than my body. So I realized that, hey, I got to go into my office where I am right now, and I got to go upstairs. So I get up, and all of a sudden my consciousness shoots out of my body, goes into my office and upstairs simultaneously. And as that happened, I see the ghosts that are in my house. I'll go, shit, he sees us. And I'm like, whoa, now I span through my whole house, and I'm seeing all the rooms where the other spirits are, and they're all looking at me, and I shot back into my body like a rubber band. I said, what the hell? And I collapsed. I'm like,
wow, dude.
Well, here's the thing, because I've done remote viewing, astral travel, and because as a medium, I go into a house and I send my thoughts out, but I'm not loose enough to go all out. I went all out of my body and then came right back in, and it was overwhelming. Now I had this sense of fear because I didn't have control. I'm shooting all over the place in amounts of time. Any thought that pops into my head, I'm shooting back to that memory in time. So I'm laying on the floor, I'm losing control, and then all of a sudden everything goes dark, and then I see the demons. The demons come flying down to me, lashing at me, biting me, everything. And I'm like, get them off me, get up. And I'm screaming, and I'm looking at them. I had the most overwhelming sense of fear I've ever experienced in my life. And they're like, we have you now. We made Jesus bleed. You know, who's going to save you now? You're alone in the darkness forever. And I'm thinking this can happen forever. And I'm like, I go, call the paramedics, call my mom, call a priest. I'm stuck psychologically in this realm and I can't get out. But then I hear this voice going, within 8 hours, you will be fine. Calm. And I'm like, what? And so then the demons are telling me, crush your cat's head because it's coming up to me, rubbing against me. I'm like, no, get it. Go grab a knife and kill your friend. He hates you. He lies behind your back. And this, I'm like, what? Get out of my head. No, stop. It was horrific. Okay. I mean, I felt like I was in hell. Then I'm like, no. I'm like, I got to get in my meditation room, which where's all the prayer and I do all my readings. So I commando climb. I can't, no use of my legs at this point. I crawled all the way up the stairs with my elbow. It was the most exhausting thing I've ever done. Crawled into the room and laid down and felt like I was safe because now I was protected. The demons could not follow me in there. So I'm in there for a while. Then I said, okay, I got to go to bed. So I crawl into the bed. I get in the bed and I'm shooting all over the place. I wake up in the morning, open up my eyes. I'm looking at the carpet. And I see this strand of carpet and I've never been more in the moment than I was right there. I was precise. I woke up and I felt amazing, but I sat and reflected on my experience and I wrote it down in my journal going, this was real. How this was real was, which people don't understand in psychiatry, because of stuff that I've done with my mind and remote viewing, everything else, I was shooting out of my body within time to various memories from the past, regaining it that exists in the collective consciousness. Not only that, I was able to go into various dimensions, which I've done before as a medium, but not fully, to where I felt like I was no longer in my body where I had that security blanket. I was somewhere else and I was afraid where it was going to take me next because I had no control of my consciousness because I've never been in this loosened state before. So, I mean, I had a couple other experiences later doing similar and I learned how to control it, but it made me realize that some of these individuals that have psychological disorders that are seeing demons and being attacked and asking for help and being terrorized are actually seeing them because their brain frequency or wave or consciousness is on a level of existence that we don't occupy.
Right.
Not only, and then you look at the flocka, it's inducing and putting people in that state where they have no control. Because I was there just on cannabis oil. Too much cannabis oil.
Right. It's just a little too much. So it's very interesting what you're talking about is, and I want to ask this one question. When you talked about fear, when you got that fear, I had to ask you this question. Did you get an uncontrollable shake to you?
All I remember was a heaviness, and I felt like I was in some type of limbo where I was never getting out, like I was in a prison. And I saw eternity, like I was going to be there for eternity. I remember vomiting and stuff like that. I remember where I could not even, it was so hard. It took every effort just to move my arm and leg. I know there was parts where I was doing tremors and stuff. I went through various stages. I don't remember if that was the same time when I was being attacked, but
go ahead. I'm sorry.
But coming from a psychology background and being a counselor 18 years and dealing with these cases, now to be the victim, I can tell you there is no freaking way it was hallucination. That was real.
Yeah,
okay.
When we take these things, we open up our minds, and we're not realizing.
I was vulnerable, so that's why they attacked me. I was vulnerable.
Right. So, like, the reason why I was asking that question is because I'm always curious when people say certain things, so that I can better understand certain things that happen to me or somebody else that I know. Like, I'm a big person on trends when hauntings happen to people or certain things in certain houses. So I try to pay attention to certain trends. And one of the things is that now you're familiar with Bachelor's Grove. You had a thing at Bachelor's Grove.
I used to go there in the 90s.
Right.
Yeah.
So we used to do tours out there. I used to do tours out of there, just like a lot of other people do, blah, blah, blah. But I know that you get attachments from that place. I believe that there's a form of possession that is going on in that place. I think it's due to, like, in the 1950s, people started just trying to open up things they don't know nothing about. Not that I do.
Well, they said there was like devil worship. People used to go out, not actually in Bachelor's Grove, but an area beside it in the forest. They used to do some terrible stuff a long time ago.
But I would get attachments from that place every time when we did tours, because we'd go out there with the Anahata box. And Steve, just so you know, that trail, Steve will tell you, we took the box on the trail and we started getting answers in reverse. We noticed that. We put that through our Audacity program.
Yeah.
And we reversed the reverse on, ran forward plane, and we started getting answers like Angel Michael. I had his training. We have
a whole dialogue.
We got the Fallen. Yeah, the Fallen.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just weird. But that's why I had to ask you about the fear if you got an uncontrollable shake, because that's what's happened to me. Because
No, I've felt that fear in childhood. It comes from the darkness. It comes from the pure evil. And
yeah,
it's actually their fear of the creator that they are
Mhm.
projecting onto you,
Right.
because they can't hold it for so long. Because when Jesus shows up or God shows up or an angel shows up during possession, they flee, man. They're terrified of the light because of judgment. So that fear that they get once in a while, they know that's it. It affects them, so they try to affect other people that they're possessing or taking it. Like
Mhm.
I had how long ago? I think it was about 4 years ago, maybe 5. Uh, I was having a nightmare, and I know when I have a nightmare to pull myself out of it, because that means that negative entities are trying to control me in my dream state, or there could be something beside the bed that's actually doing that. And I wait. Sure enough, I'm surrounded by this black mass. So as I'm in my wake state, I start kicking at it. I watch it shoot up to the ceiling, and those little sparkles happen. Then it tries to come back out, and I'm in this overwhelming sense of fear. I go, how can I be in a sense of fear? I've been paranormal my whole life. I speak about this stuff. I'm never afraid of this. And I'm
Mhm.
crying out for my mom like a child. And then all of a sudden, I'm trying to fight it, like, no. And then a voice says, this isn't your fear.
Mhm.
This is their fear of the creator.
and it
And all of a
projects.
sudden, boom, it's gone. I'm like, oh my God. And then I remember all the cases I had of people that have seen this black mass and felt this overwhelming sense of fear. Plus, going back to my childhood, 1977, 78, when the black mass chased me and the babysitter around the house, is that overwhelming sense of fear, the same exact feeling. And people all over, people close to me, people I don't know in certain cases, the same exact fear. It is this mechanism, it's an offensive or even defensive mechanism that the darkness, this entity uses, or entities use, to control and manipulate somebody. So I
Right.
tell people, I says, remember, it's not your fear. Pull yourself out of that fear. It's their fear on you. It's like someone, throwing something on you and you just take it off because it's not yours. It's theirs. It's a weapon. Knock the weapon out of their hand, right? Don't think it's coming from you. Now, listen to what I just said. So now you have all these people that have drug addiction, psychological disorders, and feel it's them. But it's the entity amplifying or inducing it on the individual.
Mhm.
Like Terrence Palmer was a doctor, psychologist that had worked on many, many cases in the UK. Unfortunately, he passed away from COVID. And he documented over 2,000, 3,000 cases. And he would working with them psychologically and then have mediums come in to remove the entities. And he had this happened all the time. And he got to know some of these entities and stuff like that.
Mhm.
He felt it was a 2-step process. One was to work on their trauma, their emotional and mental problems from their past or present, but then also separate the parasitic entity so they can no longer stay in that state and they can heal. Because what happens is these negative entities will force you to stay in that mental state to where nothing really helps. And you can't become the person you want to be because something's forcing you to be in that mental state. Now, he stated, and I have no other data to go on at this time for what the actual percentage is, except his data is 80%. So even if we took a fraction of that, 20, 30% of cases have a demonic possession or some type of entity, don't you think it's important for us to help remove that entity?
Yeah.
And there's simple ways to even validate it is, you write down or discuss stuff that nobody else would know and this entity knows. But then the most simplest way, which a case I had, because this entity was telling this guy to kill himself or go back to Afghanistan to fight in the war. Other people thought it was just his PTSD and psychological problems. I took out a digital recorder because I could feel the entity in the house.
Mhm.
And he already told me that it keeps telling him go to war. I said, the entity that's here, I know you're here. Tell us, what are you trying to tell him? I play it back and it says, go to war. There it is. I play it back and he's like, yep. And then his girlfriend and her daughter are like, oh,
Wow.
realizing in that moment, he's not crazy.
Mhm.
The voices he's hearing are actually there because I just recorded it. So how's that possible? It's so simple, man. So
See, I
simple.
think it's more than 80%. I think that
It could be. I mean,
everybody-
I don't know how
I
we
think
could even, maybe
I think
80% of the
everybody's
cases
possessed.
he had out of the 2,000 to
Yeah.
3,000 was 80%.
Right.
But,
Oh, you know what?
Now-
We also get these possessions that are perfect possessions. I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me talk in case my mom is listening and I haven't said anything. Hey, Mom. No, I think like it's possible. I'm open to have a dialogue about it. I think that almost every single person is possessed by this background chatter that pretends to be us.
Right.
It's like, and it does it so well. It does it in your own voice. I was talking to Neil the other day, and I'm like, it'll be in your own voice and be like, Neil, take it. No one's looking, And it's like little things, like the possession it starts off small. It's like this little
Oh
thing
yeah.
that you really shouldn't do. It's not a big deal, and you kind of like intellectualize, right? But it's not you. It's the thing inside of all of us that's talking to us, saying, "Oh, just a little bit. Just open the door a little bit. No one's looking." Take that little Reese's peanut butter cup, Neil. No
It
one, no,
starts out with the
no.
Reese's.
It starts off small, right?
Right.
And then it gets into bigger things, bigger problems. And
Oh,
I
I know.
think the secret to all of this is to realize that we are not our thoughts. We're just the observer.
Right. And I tell
We
people
can,
too, if you
yeah,
don't control your thoughts, then who's going to? And
right.
if you don't filter your thoughts, then who's going to?
Yeah.
I
So
just
when
see
I get
them for
stuff
what
that
they
pops,
are.
yeah, when I get stuff
They're not
pop in
you.
my head, that's not, I'm like, hey, you're not me. And I start thinking about something positive,
Right.
because I remember in high school, I gave into some of these thoughts and got into fights, which I
Mhm.
shouldn't have. And I remember when I went to college, I remember sitting down with my counselor. I was just talking about this last week. And she was the wife of the head coach of the football team that I played for. And we talk about whatever. I told her my house was haunted and stuff. And I tell her I get these voices in my head. And she's like,
Mhm.
what are they telling you? Well, right now they're telling me to get up and punch you and choke you,
Mhm.
She's like, do you want to do that? I said, no, it's wrong. And I told her, I identified that these are the spirits that were in our house because I saw what my dad used to do. I've seen what my mom's done, and I've seen the mistakes I've made
Mhm.
where it got me, get angry, throw the bowl across the room. And I took my cereal bowl and threw it across the room. And both my mom and sister were completely calm, going, wow, that was great. You just destroyed your favorite bowl and you created a mess that you're going to have to clean up later. And I was like, ah. And I walk, I'm like, why the hell did I do that? What made me do that? Because something told me, go do it and just do it. Or go
Right.
punch this kid because he's talking to your girlfriend. I go punch him. In high school, I was
Uh-huh.
like, why did I do it? She's like, why did you do that? I'm like, why did I do that? What the hell?
Mhm.
And I had to learn that, there are people, you see the knockout game, you see other things
yeah.
and gangs and stuff. They go do this because they're listening to those voices because it's giving
Right.
them power and making them feel powerful. It's
Mhm.
not them that's getting powerful. The demon's getting more powerful within them and the
Yeah.
force and control over them. And it's like, but the thing is that, okay, we are going to know more about this. More of it's going to come out because it's starting to come out from top people in the world, politicians, and even, journalists are starting to talk about some of these things. And the whistleblowers are coming, talking about this stuff, that there are things, and it's going to continue to do that. I know it was like just 10 years ago, Roman Catholic Church had more people sign up for their exorcist class in Rome than anybody else. And it consisted of psychologists, engineers, physicists, because they realized that there's something else going on out there.
Yes, there
Mhm.
is.
And we're going to know more and more about it because, as we say, the veil is thinning. I think it's also our consciousness becoming more aware. So that's thinning the veil as well. But when more people start doing these negative things are happening, it's changing our environment. Because it's changing our environment, it's creating the environment that they want to thrive in. So, and that's the thing, our entire world and everything is a holographic frequency, a vibration. If that vibration becomes more darker and more evil, it's going to create more of an environment for more of these things to get through. Because as we know, certain virus bacteria can't exist in certain temperatures. And same thing is like that. You can't exist in certain frequencies. So something that is of the dark can't exist that something's in the light. But if you make the light darker, the dark can then slowly start to survive in that area that was once dark, was once light. And I think that's what we're dealing with in our society. And it's scaring me because, Jesus, man, we're going to get more and more negative stuff happening as it's happening. And even Seth, if anybody followed Seth, the works of Seth, Jane Roberts, Seth talked about this. The more you think about this, if you like watch horror movies or slasher movies and stuff like that, it's going to create an environment that it's desensitized and more of it's just going to be acceptable.
Right.
And
Right.
you
No,
see,
you're absolutely
when
right.
you see people getting killed on social media, you would not see that 20 years ago unless you go rent the death tape VHS to watch it, which some of that stuff was fake, some
Was
was
that
real.
Faces of Death or something?
Now you're seeing stuff all the time that's just becoming normal and it's entertainment. It's like, what are we doing?
Right.
So, like, take for instance, former entertainment. You talked about the movie Nefarious.
Yeah.
All right. I talked to. He's a friend of yours, Brad Pate. He's a friend of yours.
Yeah. We did a case together in Indiana.
Yeah, I had him on actually I had him on. Actually, he sent me some
Great
video
guy.
of something as well, and I had him on. Really nice guy. Really, I
It's one of the nicest people you can find. Yep.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I took such a liking to him. I actually met him at Jack's as well,
Mhm.
and I told him, watch this movie Nefarious, man, and I want to know your opinion on what you think of how close this is to true possession, of how
Oh God,
the
yeah.
banter, the back and forth of talking back and forth. I told him, I said, this is the closest thing to what a real possession is. Because,
Correct.
see, like I said, I've come across these individuals.
Yeah, it's not blood flying all over the place and objects.
It's
You know,
not
it's
like
not
the
like that.
Conjuring movie.
I mean, light
Right.
bulbs going off? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Power going out? Yes, that happens.
Mhm.
Yeah, that dialogue in that movie,
Oh,
the
it was
back
incredible.
and forth. I'm telling you, it's only because number one, you're going to feel what's right, okay,
Yep.
and you're going to know what's right.
Truth.
And
Your
I'm
soul
telling
knows.
you, that there was the best dialogue of what possession is. That's a
Yep.
fact. That's from just me saying that. That's my
Yep.
opinion.
I agree.
And then
I
I
just
gave
watched it
Steve,
last
he
night.
loved it too. He loved that movie.
Steve?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I watched it one time, and
Thanks, Steve.
it was so real to me. I had trouble sleeping the night I watched Nefarious.
Yeah.
But
I
recommend
remember
that movie. I recommend that movie so much, man.
I remember when we were shooting Dead Famous, it might have been the second or third season. I don't remember. We were staying in a hotel. We got done early that night, and I had the DVD of The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and I was going to watch it. So I
mhm.
popped it into my laptop, and I was watching it in my hotel room. And then all of a sudden, the lights started flickering in the bathroom, and then I started feeling heaviness and darkness coming. So I shut off. I walked around. I go, what the? So I
Mhm.
break out the Bible, right?
Mhm.
And I started
Mhm.
reading a little bit from the Bible. I put it back in. And I start watching the laptop, and I start getting all dizzy and disoriented, like something was trying to affect me.
Mhm.
Then the drawer where the Bible was opened by itself.
Hmm.
And I hear this, what the hell? And I'm looking around. I see, it's open. And I'm like, watching the movie itself, okay, because I know how real this is, and them being aware that I was watching it, they were trying to mess with me. I mean, it's crazy.
Man,
It doesn't happen to everybody, but it's like, why me?
that's a goosebump moment, my friend. A goosebump
Mhm.
moment.
Oh,
So let's talk about something positive.
yeah.
Okay. I did bring you on here to talk about your new show. Well, you're part of the show from Vogue Williams. She does the show Haunted Ireland.
Yeah.
Steve, can we pull up the picture of Haunted Ireland real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
then
it's
I-
called Spooked Ireland in the UK and Europe, and it's called Haunted Ireland here, and it's on both Discovery Plus and Max in both countries.
Right. Now,
Yep.
the episode that I liked, Chris, your episode 4, Lep Castle.
Yep.
Is it pronounced Lep or Leap?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Lep. They call it Lep. I want to say Leap, but it's Lep Castle.
Right.
Yeah, it's my favorite episode.
I pulled this picture, and I want to ask you a question. Pull
Right.
the second picture that I sent to you, Steve, please. This picture
Oh, yeah,
here,
Yep.
is this supposed to be Mildred in your mind?
No, that was from Blackwater Castle.
Oh, that's Blackwater Castle. The reason why, I haven't got the Blackwater.
That's Blackwater Castle. Yeah. Oh, wait till you watch that.
So, because I watched this episode and you were talking about Mildred, and you were talking about the evil.
Mildred was the one conjuring up the entity, which is a fact.
Mhm.
And we called it. Well, the spirits called it. I asked them, "What do you call this thing?" And they called it it. We kept getting it on the recorder. I'm like, all right, we're just going to call it it. And I remember Evelyn and I had a conversation. Well, some people are going to call it elemental, some people call it demon. We don't know exactly what it is. If it's evil, it would have demonic properties, but doesn't necessarily mean it's a demon. It could be some type of creature entity we don't understand. And her and I had a very intelligent discussion of that, to not just label it a demon, and then we asked, is it like a demon? And then some spirits said, yeah, it's like a demon. So their interpretation of it would be that. Does it necessarily mean it's a demon? I don't think so. I think it's a creature. Later, not during that investigation, when because I tend to do some research after the investigation, after we've done filming, because if I still have some questions I didn't get answered, I pursue it. And in this case, I believe it was an egregore. Okay. And if you look up egregore, you can see what that means. And some definitions describes an egregore as something that's manifested by thought. Well, the whole fact is Mildred wanted to conjure something up to do her bidding. So she conjured up this entity that took and manifested within our reality that shape and form, which is an egregore. Okay.
Yeah, I was
It's
going to ask
a
you.
very short creature, though. Very short.
Right. So what I was going to say was topa. I was going to say topa, something that, you put a lot of energy into, you put a lot of thought into, and all of a sudden they're conjured. Correct?
Yep.
All right. So that was actually
So the entity comes into our reality and takes a physical form. Yeah.
Right. So I found that to be a pretty cool episode as well. I haven't finished.
What about Kennedy Castle? Kennedy Castle was extraordinary. Did you see the activity?
I saw the first episode, which was
I channeled.
Yeah, where you got the sexual thing going on.
Yeah, the woman that I had to lay down, and then you find out later stuff there used to be women chambers and stuff used to go on there too.
Yeah,
the ladies.
I was like this. I said, "Oh, Chris."
I got to lay down. I'm like, I felt so heavy, and there was a ley line that was there too. So it was like, and you see the static that happened with the sound guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like this man's coming up the right. It was insane.
So
that was such a great place.
Let me ask you a question, Steve. Do you have anything that?
I'm sorry.
This part I'm interested. It's kind of like a spoiler thing for me because I have not seen this stuff.
Charlieville was great.
So the thing is that you talked about ley lines. How do you? Because it's something that's very hard for me to discover, even though I know it.
It's like a big heavy magnet to me. That's what I feel. Yeah.
But how do you identify them as? Because nobody really can. And correct me if I'm wrong, because there's other people who have done things that I haven't done. How widespread can you actually find out how long a ley line is?
Oh, I don't know. I've never tried. I've never tried to figure out how long it is, and I just know this spot right here is very,
it's got to be a ley line.
Active, yeah.
Right. And I'm a big believer is that.
The thing is, I didn't know it was a ley line until I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh my God, because I walked in there just going, I feel like there's something here, and then something else. Like I got to lay down. I feel so freaking heavy.
So in 2022, you did an episode of Spooked Scotland.
Yeah.
What do you think is more haunted, Ireland or Scotland?
I don't even know if I can compare the two in that way.
Really?
Because we had stuff happen consistently at both places, But the most haunted place I've been to was active. That to me is like something you see right out of the movies. Is Kennedy Castle. When we went to Leap Castle, I forget the family's name, also owned that castle. So that's why we went there, right? To see if this entity was
1300s. It was built in the 1300s.
Yeah.
And you believe that there was an elemental or
correct. We called it elemental until later we believed it was an egregore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not an elemental of our dimension, is what I'm saying. It's something that was conjured up and brought in here. But when we went to Kennedy Castle, I mean, it's just, I'm like telling people, you got to watch it. Everything that happened.
So now that's what I'm going to do right after we get done.
It's just, I mean, we walk from one room, stuff happens, we go to the other room, stuff happens. And then the crew doesn't even realize. And I look above and I see what's happening. And they're like, oh my God. And it was way too high up for them to even touch it. And then did you guys hear that?
The tick?
Yeah. It was like 2 knocks right on my door.
Hear that? Yeah, I actually did hear that. But I thought there was
2 means yes. 2 means yes, just so you know. Okay.
Yeah,
remember 2 here, 2 for yes, 1 for no. And there was like 2 knocks, and I'm the only one in this house.
There was it almost sounded like a little tack. Sound like a little tack. Yeah.
So anyway,
Steve, did you hear it?
I can't hear things very well.
So
whenever we're on investigation, everybody hears the disembodied voice except me.
So when you talk about objects moving, doors opening, closing, things moving, and stuff like that, it was all happening from one room to the next, meaning it was following us. So to have it happen in one room, go to another part of the hotel and have it simultaneously again, have it happen again, and that it's just extraordinary. And you could see it happen right on camera. Some of the times it's happening right in front of us on camera. To me, I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, I'm looking at it, yes, this is what we dream of, right? It's like, okay, stay focused. Now find out who the hell's doing this, right? It was awesome.
I have to admit, you looked very, very happy, like you're in your right realm.
Oh, I'm in my realm, man. I mean, think about it. People need to realize I grew up as a kid dealing with this type of stuff. I'm not just someone that says, oh yeah, I saw a ghost as a kid. I saw ghosts as a kid throughout my whole life and dealt with stuff. And some stuff was terrifying and people made fun of me or people wouldn't, thought I was crazy. Now to be able to go to this and have it witnessed and have an entire crew document it with me. Game day. Like I told Barry and Jane when we were at this house that had a demon in it, right? And the woman was being attacked by it. I mean, you watch the show, it's extraordinary. And she wants to write a book about what happened. Is that when the cross goes flying across the room, gets ripped off the wall, goes flying across the room, and it happened twice, by the way.
Mhm.
The whole crew was terrified. And I'm looking at them and I'm looking at the cross through. I go, guys, are you scared? They're like, we're terrified. I said, why? This is game day. This is what I dream about confronting. Because as a kid, I couldn't front it. I didn't know what to do. I was terrified. Now I'm not scared. I got angels. I got other stuff protecting me. And plus, I can protect myself because I got free will. So for
Right.
me, it's like, put me in front of this. I want to face this, man, because I could not face it as a kid. So for me, I know, as an adult that I was raised to be able to do this, prepared for this. So for me, it's like, let's do this. I mean, sure, if I'm alone, I'm like, oh shit, I need someone here with me, right? Because I need the support. I need one to validate what's happening, right? But when I got the crew and everything, it's like, all right, guys, you're here. Whatever happens, document it. And that's what I love about it.
Well, let
That's
me ask you one more question, just one more. We were actually over our mark because I believe that this is just some awesome conversation we're having.
No,
today.
thanks.
And when did you learn at a young age when all these things were going on? Because it happened almost the same for me. Everything happened when I was young. When did you learn to just accept it? And how did you accept it?
Oh, just accept it. I mean, I don't think I ever really fully accepted it. I mean, it's just, well, I shouldn't say that because it was always like normal for me. I mean, I had the thing happen when I was one and a half, which I told my mom. Then I had the thing happen when I was 3 years old when my sister almost drowned, the dream that came true. And because it saved her life, for me, it was just normal. Now, my mom grew up with having premonitions and dreams that would come true. So for me, it was normal. Okay, this sixth sense. Then when I had the imaginary friend, which was an imaginary friend, I remember playing with him. I remember the stuff he showed me, the stuff that we did together. And then he left. And then we moved to Hoffman Estates. And then I started seeing the ghost there that I was terrified of. I thought this was normal. But when I started going to first grade and other kids said it doesn't exist, and the teacher says it doesn't exist, but then some other kids say I've had experiences too, I was confused.
Sure.
I thought that then when I remember when the Omen came out, Damien Omen 2, I remember I was reading, my mom had the book, she was reading it. So I started reading it. And he said that because I was having negative entities, I thought, oh my God, what if I'm the Antichrist? Right? Because I have double stuff going on in our house.
Oh, dear Lord,
So-
I'm the Antichrist.
So I asked, no, you'll get a laugh out of this. I'll never forget. It was during the day and I'm reading the book and I got it circled. I said, Dad, you need to do something for me. He's like, what? I said, well, you need to make sure there's not something on my head. He's like, what? I said, the number 666. He's like, what? I said, no, Dad, seriously. He's like, son, stop. Come on, knock it off. I said, no, Dad, please. Come in my room. You got to look at my head, look all through my scalp. Make sure there is not a 666, right? My dad, the joker that he is, he's going through my hair looking like to see if I have any ticks or anything like that, right?
Mhm.
He's going through my head. He's like, what's this? I go, what? He's like, wait a minute, hang on. I go, what is it? What is it? I'm like terrified, right? He's like, oh my God. I go, what? Is it a 666? He's like, no, well, I go, what do you mean? Well, he's like, it's 664. I go, what? 664. He's like, why would you? He starts playing it off. He's like, son, I'm just kidding. There's nothing there. And now I'm believing him that there is something there. So I'm looking in the mirror and everything's like, son, stop. I'm just kidding. So, because when you start having this stuff happen, everybody else, it's not happening to, or they're not talking about it. You're like, oh my God, what if I'm the Antichrist? Oh, it's terrible that my dad did
I gotta
that.
put that as a quote of Chris Fleming. What if I'm the Antichrist?
No, it's like, I don't want to be the Antichrist. I go to a Catholic school. I'm an altar boy. I'm like, what no, because I was having dreams about the devil too. So it was like,
Mhm.
It's like, I want you and this and that. So I'm like thinking, oh God, this is what's going to happen.
At least he
Yeah,
didn't
that's
shave your
awesome,
head.
dude.
That would have been kind of funny too.
Yeah,
Well,
right?
son,
Yeah.
I had to shave your head if I'm going to see for sure.
No, I can't let
Oh
anybody
my
see this.
God.
Put a Band-Aid on it. I don't want anybody to see it.
Oh,
Can you
that's
imagine?
hilarious.
Get my finger. What? Nothing. What's on your head? Nothing.
Dude, that's hilarious.
Right? They can't
That's hilarious.
know. They can't know. That's a true story. I'm serious. It's just,
I believe you. I
never
believe
forget
you.
that.
I believe you, man. And,
I thought about going back online and rebuying the Damien Ohm 2 novel that I had with this. But I'm like, no, I don't want to attract any more negative stuff
No.
because it was, what? Maybe I still even have it.
Oh no.
No, I don't think. I think we got rid of it. I mean, I got the library of books I've had my whole life, pretty much. But I still got the comic book. When something happened, I kept that. Oh my God! But it's just you get these little pop culture things that sometimes cross reference into your life with the paranormal when something happens.
Mhm.
Like the first time I watched Exorcist, which was in grade school, And my mom and sister went out to go eat. And I didn't want to go. I wanted to watch this, and the power went out in the house while I was watching it. During the scary part, and we had thunder and lightning. So I'm hiding in the corner of the house behind the couch, terrified because our house is, haunted, that the ghosts and demons did this. You know what I mean? But it was just a power outage. I was so scared. And that's the problem. You give into the fear and it just feeds it.
Oh yeah. My brother, we did the same thing. I watched it and my brother locked me in a dark closet that day. Yeah. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, God. So yeah, but getting back to the show is we did 10 episodes.
Yeah, 10
we filmed in, this is 24. So we filmed in the fall of 22.
Mm-hmm.
So we filmed like October, November, December, I believe it was. And then we came back and then it aired.
Because I saw your faces, it had been cold as hell inside those places.
Yeah, some places it got cold. Well, Scotland was the one time it was really cold. But it wasn't too bad doing Ireland, except the one time we were outside when we were by the Standing Stones, which was, that was Scotland. I'm sorry. There's the Standing Stones in Scotland. Yeah, there was some times when we were filming in Scotland, it was freezing cold. It was really bad. I actually got really sick when we were filming at Cumlagan Castle because I wasn't getting enough sleep and the weather was, I wasn't dressed warm enough. I got really, really sick.
Yeah, because when you're doing the Lep Castle, at the end, when you're trying to set them free,
I was warm there. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't
your breath.
Well, the breath was, it was freezing.
Like it was 30
I felt warm because I was in my element and I was dressed warm. I had thermals on and everything. So yeah, they bought us pairs of thermals and stuff to stay warm because it was going to be cold. Mm-hmm. But when you're dressed really warm internally and you're doing what you love, you really don't pay too much attention to the cold.
So do they, let me ask a question. I know I keep saying I'm going to ask one more question. When they're doing that, do they send you a description of every place you're going to be going back, or are you researching it yourself?
No. Well, the thing is, like, for example, Help My House is Haunted. I never got anything. I never knew where we were going. That's part of what I did. And plus it's part of what I want. I don't want to know anything. Zero. So when I was doing Help My House is Haunted, what they would do is they would have one of the PAs, assistants, would pick me up at the hotel, would drive me to a destination and drop me off there, and Barry and Sandy first season, Barry and Jane second season, would then pick me up and then take me to the location. So then I was never sent to the location. I was always brought somewhere else away from it, then put in that car, just like I was on Portals to Hell. And then I was taken to the location. Okay. So I never knew when I was doing Help My House is Haunted. With Spooked Scotland and Ireland, it's like, you guys can tell me and everything because it's not about me walking around cold turkey. It's about me getting right to the point, finding out who's there and what's going on. But the thing is that I never really read any of the material or anything like that because I'm like, I'd rather just find out the day of, because it's a lot of work to try to, read every single thing you're going to be doing that whole trip while you're spending all the time trying to get ready to pack, find out what you're going to wear and go. Just don't have time for that. So for me, it's like to be in the mindset, to be ready to go, just like any other case, is I will tackle it when I'm doing the case, not a long time before. Now, we did describe, like, director would call me and say, hey, we're going to be dealing with some elementals or, stuff like this. Is there anything you suggest that we do? And I would discuss some of the things I would do. Really, none of it was used in the second season. It was used in the first season. But when we go to these places, I'm like, okay, what goes on in this place? And we'll talk about it. And then I'll get stuff that I'm not even aware of that I'll tell them, and we'll have to ask people that run it or own it what's going on. And you see, which I really liked about in Spooked Ireland, because I watched Spook Scotland. I said, okay, here's what we need to improve upon. We need more time in the debriefing room to discuss what's going on camera. So where we all come together and we share what's going on. Because first season, we didn't do that enough. We're like, okay, I got this. All right, go. There's no game plan. I said, we have to have a game plan, because in any actual paranormal case, that's what we do. And I need to know what I'm going to be doing or focusing on. Each one of us needs to know what's the missing piece that we need to figure out who and why is here. So what we did in Spooked Ireland, that was the best part about the whole season. And I think people loved it too, because that's what we do in our cases, is that, okay, here's what this person told us about this place. Here's the evidence I got. Here's the evidence Ryan got, or we both got together. Here's what we think is here. Oh my God, here's what this person told us, or no, it's something else. Okay, we put all the pieces together. What do we need to do next? This is what we need to do, because we need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. In a case, we don't have so much time there. We need to know all the missing pieces, which means we need to communicate. You see that in the show. Us play the evidence, discuss it, discuss what the people that have been there or previous cases. Okay, now that we know all this, okay, plus whatever history and everything's been going on. What do we think is going on? What do we need to find out, or what's missing? And then we go, not at the end of the investigation like we did in Help. It's like, I always felt you have to, a couple times on the way through the case to the final part, is discuss it and go over it so you see how far you've come and what's missing. That's what we did this season. And that's what makes it just reality, because that's what you do in any case. And for me, it's like, all right, we know that this guy's here. I need to come in contact with him. Or we found out there is this elemental here. What can we find out about these types of elementals? What else do we need to know about them? Has anyone else seen them? What do we want to resolve? Is there anything to resolve, or just say, okay, you're here, it's your home, we'll leave you alone. So that's what I really liked about the second season, was getting that. Sure, there were some things I would have liked to done. At Akil, I wanted to do a seance because I know the woman that got attacked and the killer himself, they both needed to forgive each other. And I wanted to do the seance to bring them through. Did not get to do that. So there's a couple places I would have personally liked to do something different. But, when everybody's together, everybody kind of wants to do different things, or they bring it all together and come to a good thing we can agree upon.
And out of all those 10 episodes, what is your favorite castle? And now, let me finish.
Yeah.
Due to the way it looks, the history, as well as the haunting, what an overall thing of what do you think is your favorite case about all those 10 episodes?
Favorite case? Well, God, you didn't even get to hear all the audio I had with the elementals in the Alwi cave, the stuff them responding to us. That was extraordinary. The Puka, the EVP of the Puka is just, it's mind blowing. And you see it happen real time with these other paranormal investigators that are like, they're there to validate it. The Lep Castle case I liked because we were able to solve what's going on. That was my purpose, because Dustin Perry had been pushed there over 10 years ago. When he was there with Ghost Hunters. So I've been wanting to go there since I saw that episode. And I've discussed that with him going back to that time it originally happened. So for me, it was like, I got to go there. And I spoke to Dustin before I went, sent me a text message. And I stood in the spot, which we believe to be the spot where he was shoved. And of course, something happens to me in the episode. But the fact of the matter was, we found out what's there and how it got there, which other people hadn't. So for us, it was solving it, finding out what's there and confronting it, which is what we did, plus the other spirits. So for that is a full case. It's not just going to say, oh yeah, it's haunted. That's it. No, I don't do that. I got to make contact. I got to find out why, and I have to solve it if there needs to be some type of solution. That's what I do. That's what this show is about. So for me, there was many favorite locations, but the one I liked the best, that I felt there was so much more to it that was not explored in the show, was Blackwater Tower. Blackwater Tower was phenomenal because we got to actually spend the night there. And I had an experience the very first night, the day before we started filming, seeing this shadow person ghost there, and a woman walk by. So I saw two ghosts the very first night I was staying there in the hotel room. So for us, you see the panel go flying off of the dishwasher, and you didn't even get to hear the spirit box who says, I'm going to make you leave and I'm going to do something. I'm all right, go ahead and do it. And it did it. You didn't get to see that part. They left it out. But I asked it to do it and it did it. That's why I jumped so hard, because, oh my God, it made a physical object moved. But there was so much stuff that happened. And then the other time, the drums, we heard drums other times too. We caught them on recording. So there was so much that happened that it was like, you just could not fit it in a 42-minute show.
Yeah, every one of them was like 44 minutes. Every episode's 40.
That was my favorite place. It was awesome. And plus to stay there, and it's just amazing. There's 3 different time periods to that castle that was built up.
Man, I would die to want to do something like that, dude. Oh, I'd love it.
Yeah. No, it was, the one thing I give the production the credit is they picked amazing locations. They kept different types of locations, so it's not the same thing all season. They keep a variety, which I loved. And of course, their cinematography is just extraordinary. And plus the history, to making sure that the history is in the show. Those are 3 things they just did very, very well that I'm pleased with. There was so much more evidence that Ryan and I got, and some other things I'd like to do. It's frustrating as an investigator, not seeing all those elements or all those things being put in there to share how much we got. Because you see in the show, in that episode, Ryan and I are like, oh my, it's the most incredible place we've ever been. And you're like, how? There's a few things that happened. Well, there's a lot more that happened during our walk around that you did not get to see, but you can't have an entire show about the walk around. You still have all those other parts to the show, the arcs to the show that we got to get to.
Right.
So much happened in the beginning right off the bat, we're like, this is the most haunted place we've been to. But you
And
lose.
you know what? And Steve, the spirit box that they were using. What was the name of that spirit box that Ryan had that he built? What is that name of that you guys were using?
Oh, the app, the Scottish Paranormal app.
No, the box itself that he had.
Oh, the portal.
His portal. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, Frank's box, but he had the Frank's box too. He used a whole arsenal of stuff.
Yeah,
and I used Ghost Tube, Afterlife,
Ghost
ITC,
Tube. That's
and Necrophonic. Those are my three
Yeah.
favorite apps. I've also used the Ghost Tube was extraordinary. Extraordinary. I mean, it's like, because it records video and everything. And I mean, you hear the drums when we're in Augram. You hear the spirit. Plus, when we're at the one place, there was a soldier that shot and killed himself. And I'm out there by the yew trees trying to make contact. Take me back to that moment that you shot yourself. And all of a sudden you hear through the Ghost Tube, you hear the shotgun go off.
Yeah.
It's just me and the director were like, oh my God, I got it. It's not in the show. And it's just like, you know.
Yeah, I was thrown by his spirit portal box. I said, man, that looks so cool.
Did I think this is groundbreaking TV. Okay. It's groundbreaking paranormal, but you see Evelyn and Ryan at Charlieville. Ryan has he had the app, I believe, going through the portal, and Evelyn wrote down 3 words. Okay. She's skeptical about ITC. She's a parapsychologist, right? So she keeps a neutrality to our investigations. And there's a couple times you see her actually get scared in the season. She doesn't tell anybody. She writes them down. And the ITC device says all 3 of them and shocks her, right? So you know there's no trickery going on.
Right.
I remember I was going through my audio, some EVPs I got. They come into the room like, you're not going to believe this. Oh my God, it was amazing. But I'm like, what? I said, oh my God, why couldn't I sit in and watch this? Well, you were busy doing something. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So when I finally got to see the rough cut, because they sent me the rough cut and I take notes and I send it back to production as an associate producer. I'm like watching this over and over going, this is groundbreaking TV. This is like when the K2 meter was first developed, when the spirit box was first shown. I mean, even though we've talked about this stuff and this experiment's been done before, no one's ever really done this on TV and paranormal TV. And I think it was kind of overlooked as such an extraordinary little thing because they were playing the music too much. The music's playing over it, which I hate when they do. But when you watch it for what it is, you have a parapsychologist that's slightly skeptical, taking what she knows, going back to the old Rhine experiments of words and cards, guess what this is, and the spirit box said it. It's extraordinary. Or the device said it. And it's simply this, guys. It's not actually the spirits. This is how I know it works with consciousness. It's not the spirits reading the piece of paper. Do you guys want to guess what it is? Do you guys know how the spirits know what's on that paper?
I'm going to say psychically.
Yeah. Because Evelyn's got the word in her head. She's projecting it into the environment, into the ether, and the spirits are picking it up from the ether.
It's all frequency.
It's not transfer. It's telepathy. It's telepathy.
Yeah, we've done that. We've actually done that where we started learning by using Steve's box, the Anahata, and he'll tell you, we would start talking about things, and I say, let's just think about things.
That's what you do.
And then
it'll answer before you even start.
Absolutely.
talking.
On the apps and the spirit box. Absolutely.
Right.
When it happens, it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's consciousness. It's consciousness.
You know what's amazing actually is when Steve built the box, the one that we have. We actually built another one that we've never shown you before, but is that he dreamt about making this thing.
Right.
Tell him that quick story real quick, Steve.
Well, it would be, so I saw a couple of boxes out there, right? And I, at the time, not really into paranormal that much. I just had this compulsion to build it. I did not even know Neil at the time.
Didn't even know.
And basically my younger brother, who knew Neil, worked with Neil now that Neil's retired. My brother's way into the paranormal, and he was going to house sit for me. And so I built a box for him to play with. And all along I'm thinking, I'm just going to mess with my little brother. I'm going to let his mind play tricks on him, because to me, it's all auditory illusion as I'm building this. You know, our mind is a meaning-making machine. It will make meaning out of nothing, the meaningless. And so I built this box, and he's like, this is pretty cool. And Neil's in the neighborhood, and he tells Neil, hey, my brother built this box. And Neil's like, this is all bullshit.
That's what I was like. This I was like, well,
Those
I
were
know
his
what it
exact
is.
words.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
at the time, the way that I did things is that it was more of I didn't rely on machines.
Yeah.
I believed in like EMFs and just recorders and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then all of a sudden he presents me. This is some years ago. He presents me this. We called it at the time the chakra box.
Right.
I was like, "Get out of here, dude!" I go, "Get out of here, man."
This is my first interaction ever with Neil.
Yeah, first interaction.
And is opening up the trunk of my brother's car and turning this box on. And I swear it says, "Hi, Neil."
Oh my God.
And so we took this box everywhere, and it started freaking me out. Okay. So I'm like going, oh, wow, the auditory illusion is so strong that even though I know what's going on, it is playing with me. It's my own mind making me think that, I'm hearing my name, or it's answering things before I even talk. And anyway, there was just some things that were happening around the house. My wife, she did not want that thing in the house. Things were
Understood.
happening when I would go to work. And so my brother agreed to take it. And I decided to build a new box. And basically, my brother had a ton of bad luck, bad juju with that box.
Shit.
He put it in the trunk of his car, and he got into a car accident.
3 times.
Okay. Well, wait. And then he gets a new car, and he puts the box back into the trunk of his car, and he parks his car in front of his house. And this is like weeks go by. This doesn't happen right day after, he gets the car, but weeks go by. I think stuff would happen. He'd get sick first. He'd feel really ill for a while. And then all of a sudden, like, this bad luck would happen. And he parked his car in front of his house, and some guy hit it.
Oh boy.
And totaled it. And then this continues to happen 2 more times. One while he was parked at work, and one when he was at a stoplight. His car gets totaled. I get this box back in a garbage bag, and it's filthy. It's dirty. It's been knocked around. It's going back and forth, and pushed around in the car as he's driving for about 3 years. And I cleaned the box up. We have a friend. Her name is Shell. She's worked with us in the past. She's on our team. She did a little blessing. It's now her box. Sorry before going on with this, but
No, something just flew across the room. So I'm trying to.
We built a new box that we call it the Anahata box. And the reason why is that I'd wake up at night, and I'd have this feeling to build it. Right?
It's like the Kahuna Matata.
No, the Anahata is the heart chakra, right?
Yep.
Right. So the whole point in building this is that, and this is part of the compulsion, is to build it, but to come from the heart. Now, basically,
Intense,
as I'm building it, just sort of like fill that up, feel the energy coming from it. And I know it sounds like crazy stuff, but like you get a nice warm feeling, and you're building it. And you're not really like thinking about what you're doing. It's more of an art. It's just a knowing and putting it together.
Yeah.
And we call it the Anahata as a reminder that when we're using it, to put our intention in our heart and not just turn it on in a spooky place, and like actually put your heart into it.
Is huge.
It's also part of the team. It's
Right,
not
right.
this junk that's in the back of a car getting knocked around. You can't treat equipment like that.
Right.
It's kind of a sacred part of the team.
No, it's like Gary Galka and I have talked about this. When I first got the demo of the spirit box, and we were going back and forth on what it should be, I said, Gary, I'm not getting luck on this thing. I'm getting more in my Hack Shack, Radio Shack box.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, you got to bond with it and this and that. I said, yeah, I know. And he said, go sleep with it. I go, what? He goes, no, it's not that way. He's like, put it underneath the pillow. So I brought it to bed with me, put it under the pillow and everything, and started bonding with it. And I started getting results. And then, a couple weeks later, I went on Ghost Adventures Live in 2009. And the first time the SB7 had ever been used, it was just, there was just one in existence. It was a demo, and used that. And, what you saw happen live, man. It was extraordinary. Do you guys like Aaron? Never. It was awesome. So you know how it works. I mean, it's sure there's going to be some false positives. That's why it's very important to
Mhm.
record the entire session and then go back and mark it in Adobe Audition, whatever else, where you have the actual results that mean something. But then there's another layer, which I've discussed with other ITC researchers over the years, is that there's also an invisible layer there. So you keep the original recording raw, don't touch that, make a copy of it.
Mhm.
And then you first go through your couple sessions through it and you mark it and what you believe it's saying. Then you take a copy of that, so you still have the markers. Then you go back, then you start adjusting the amplification and the noise reduction. And I will
Mhm.
take out the entire white noise.
Yep.
But when you do that with a level, there's another conversation that's going on there that's impossible to be radio because you're sweeping all the channels. But that conversation is going on across many channels.
Mhm.
And I found that obviously, as we know, there's different levels of heaven and spirits and stuff like that. There's also different levels of communication, no different than broadcasting in the radio industry. You have consciousness that broadcasts at different levels. So even though you're having a conversation going on here, you can start to filter out, and then you're getting an entire conversation that's going on here, which may be talking about what you're doing or be something completely different. It's wild, some of the stuff we've gotten. And it's a whole part of what I call forensic audio analysis.
Mhm.
Very time consuming, it's laborious, kind of makes you go a little bit crazy. You got to come back and listen to it again. But some of the stuff you find is mind blowing. It's all
It is.
like you're accessing a new dimension. So it's
Right.
another whole nother part of ITC, forensic audio analysis, that for the diehards, they know about this, but most investigators don't because they don't spend the time. It's very
Mhm.
time consuming.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's extraordinary. No different than an anthropologist going through all these rocks and
Mhm.
slowly sifting away and cutting out to where the bone is. You know, not everybody does that.
Mhm.
It's not there. If it's not A grade, I don't use it. I throw it away. Why? You're getting
Mhm.
conversations with the spirit that you only get once in a lifetime. And you're going to throw that conversation away. No, it's like CSI. You got to go in there and you got to do the hard work. That's
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
diehards. The diehards
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Oh
Me
yeah.
and Steve had to do that, and we'll sit there and argue about things.
The,
Yeah.
You
the
know,
sad thing is that I'm losing my hearing, and
That'll affect it. Yep. Yep.
and
Sorry.
so me being able to do this kind of work, it's like I really rely on Neil and his
Yeah.
super hearing.
Yeah.
So I build a box, but he's the operator, and he'll go through it. He'll hear stuff I just absolutely cannot hear. But that's where we start amplifying, removing noise, and then there's just a point where maybe I can kind of hear it. But we get other people who listen to it, and they'll confirm it. They'll say the same thing Neil says without Neil even telling them what he heard. But yeah, it's hard when you build ITC equipment that's based on audio and you start losing your hearing. It's sort of like um,
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
painter and losing your eyesight.
yeah, I guess you're right.
Hearing, well, like you said, a painter and eyesight, and there's many different types of painters that paint in different styles.
Mhm.
Let's take a look. One of the biggest misconceptions in skepticism towards ITC is they say it's pareidolia and everybody's brain's going to make a different thing.
Sure.
What they don't know is the scientific element, the physiology of the human brain that they are not educated on. And I'm going to share with you. This is one of the most important things in fully understanding this scenario that happens all the time. Let's say we bring 5 people into a room. We play an EVP. 2 people can hear what's being said. 3 other people have no idea. Do you know why?
No.
They're deaf.
No. Has nothing to do with their ears. Nothing.
They're not frequency isn't they're not on the same wavelength.
If we did a QEEG, okay,
Oh,
of all 5 of their brains, okay, it would map out. You get a stack of data like this. Then you have a neuroscientist that goes through it, that is an expert on that. Okay. He will tell you what category their brains are in. And I guarantee you, he would tell you, well, these 3 are in a completely different category than these 2, meaning that these 3 have under amplification or over amplification in certain hemispheres and frequencies within their brain. While these are in a different frequency range, which they're able to detect because this is broadcasting in that frequency range. For example, there was one part of my brain where it is over amplified to 10 to 14 hertz. Over amplified. It's all bright red. I go, what does this mean? This means that you can hear things that other people can't hear that are at lower frequencies, very similar to like a dog hearing a dog whistle. And I said, well, that makes sense because sometimes we'll play an EVP and there's really nothing there okay, on the white noise, but I can hear something there. I go and clean it out, and there it is, right? And then everybody else can hear what's there because I cleaned it out, but most people can't hear it through that white noise, but I can, right? He says, well, because you're over amplified, so you can detect while you're hearing the white noise that there's a deviance from that white noise, that there's something there. And other people, it's all just white noise to them. They don't hear any deviance in that whatsoever. So I now know scientifically why I can hear stuff that other people can't hear. But there can be times I don't hear anything. For example, we were doing Help My House is Haunted at this house, and we were playing something through one of the boxes and an EVP. Barry's like, I heard that. I'm like, what? How the hell can you hear it? And I can't hear it when my brain's overinflated. And the other guy goes, oh my God, I heard it too. But everybody else in the room couldn't hear it. So why was it these two guys can hear it? Here's why. And Barry calls it out. It's in the show. Barry's like, well, I'm deaf in this right ear. I can't hear. I can only hear in my left ear. The other guy's like, me too. So now, because they both are only hearing out of one ear, their brain over growing up has amplified in a certain area to make up for that loss in the right ear. That over amplification is consistent with both of them, which means why both of them can hear it, but we can't.
No.
Extraordinary.
Like, that's my thing, is majority of everything I hear is in the left ear. I hear all these voices and this and that when we go into haunted locations, and we use a thing that's called the bionic ear that we utilize, and we'll go in there and I'll hear the voices, and we'll start recording the audio of bionic ear. And take, for instance, the mysterious Monroe house. We've been there, right? And all of a sudden I hear this girl's voice, and I tell Steve, I go, it's saying such and such. I forget at this time what it was, but it says such and such. I said, play that back. Nobody else heard it, but sure enough, I'm hearing these things that are going on in these homes or places that we go to investigate. And it is an amazing thing when you do start hearing it, because sometimes I start wondering, am I going nuts? Do I need medication?
Right.
But then after some time, that's when I started figuring out, all right, this is what's going on in my life, but
Yeah.
I digress.
The next
Steve, there is interpretive, of course,
Right.
Steve, where
Sure.
people will interpret it wrong. Absolutely. We can't discount that. But when we get
stuff
into
I
the
hear
science,
nowadays.
when we get into the science of the brain,
Right.
because there's been times I don't hear it. And then on a certain day, oh my God, I hear it. Why is that? Well, my brain frequency is slightly different than it was the previous days. Plus, you can train a brain to become comfortable with those frequencies to where eventually it can hear it.
Yeah,
people that are doing EVP for decades, they can hear stuff. Other people just just can't hear it because they've trained themselves to listen for it.
Right.
So there's factors. There's various factors.
Right.
I think the next technical advancement in paranormal research will be AI. Large language models, being able to translate what's being said, but also having sensitive equipment that can pick things up that are beyond normal human hearing, being able to pick up vibration, audio, and so forth, and then interpreting that and translating it into.
That would be great to put our
That's
EVP
kind of
audio
where-
through it, and then it finds
Right.
all those things for us. Oh my God.
That's where I think, I think everything happens for a reason. And I think as I start losing my hearing, that, and I'm a programmer by trade, and I'm very into AI right now. I think that's the next step, is to just play around with what large language models can do in terms of interpreting language, but also combining that with sensitive enough equipment to pick up, frequency and translate that. We'll see what happens.
No, it's extraordinary. I mean, it's scary in the same sense, because then, we theorize what happens if negative entities start to take over the AI
And start to communicate with the AI. Right.
Well,
start training it.
I've had a few things happen that really freaked me out. I was messing with some AI artwork, and all of a sudden, it pops up showing an elemental with the flute. And I'm like, what? And then it does it again. And we've done an experiment where we projected into certain things with some AI software when we were in Scotland during my tour last year for a trip we did. And Ryan had one of those AI things where it projects, pictures and stuff. And some of the stuff we were getting was remarkable, as it had everything to do with the location.
That's interesting.
I find, like you said, so what you said is accurate, that
right.
AI is somehow going to work itself into ITC or some visual or whatever it is to help us find those realms.
That's what we do with technology in the paranormal field. We use everything, from
Yep.
Xbox to digital recorders. I mean, AI would be no different, and it's going to find its way into this research. And that's a fascinating idea, Chris. Is take something like a stable diffusion, an image generator, right?
Mhm.
And bring that. Of course, you have to have a nice laptop that can do it. It's something portable, but bring it to a haunted location. Don't give it any description, and just
Open
generate
it
an
up.
image.
Just open it up.
Just have it generate an image. And actually, what would be kind of cool is like a thought experiment, like you're saying, is I might even play around with that and maybe have Neil write down a few things and
I
then
think
see
that's
what
great.
happens. Yeah.
So actually, me and Steve were talking about this last year to somehow build a thesaurus or a dictionary, something to implement almost as a new app,
Mhm.
as an AI app that we can utilize for something like that, just to see, as it's totally experimental, just to see the responses that we would get. Because take, for instance, Steve's working on something that we're putting into the podcast. And sometimes when you put certain words in, it describes these things thoroughly.
Yeah, I know.
Like
It's
it
amazing.
knows it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's weird, man. So I wonder, when we say AI, I understand it says artificial intelligence. But
Right.
is it really artificial, or is it something? Is it the ghost in the machine? I don't know,
Or
man.
are we tapping into eventually collective consciousness? That is the infinite
Right.
intelligence that's all knowing. The question is, who's the face behind that? We have to be very careful. It's not
Sure,
something negative.
I
You
agree.
know, I would like to see, if we were to say, what would be the first things we should work on with AI? The first two things is, one is any type of video work. So for example, all the video cameras I got around my house, the surveillance cameras, because I have stuff happen, also for security purposes. But I've caught numerous anomalies floating around. It's not dust, and you can see it's pretty extraordinary. Is I don't have time to go through 24 hours
Right.
every single day. But if I had an AI that I get up in the morning and it would detect some anomalies, I can go right to those anomalies and watch them. And then it can learn what is dust, what is not dust, and what is
Mhm.
bugs over a period of time. It can detect not bugs, not dust. Please review. And then you review it and you'd be like, oh my God.
Mhm.
You got 7 days in a week, 24 hours a day, and
Right.
it would quickly go through all that. And you
Mhm.
catch one or two incredible captures. Of course, you're going to get some stuff. I, by luck, have just decided to look at something and there's something, oh my God, just when I thought it was at that time. Whenever I get waked up or disturbed, I say to Alexa, what time is it, Alexa? And she says what time it is. Then in the morning, I go look at my Alexa of the conversations. It'll tell me what time I asked that, because I'll forget. Then I go to my cameras at that time when I notice something and see if it's on the cameras, whether it's visually or audibly.
Mhm.
Did you guys hear the bang?
No. But I was going to say something to you, but I was going to wait till we were off air. I was going to ask you a question.
That's the ghost in my house responding to that. So something, it's 50% of the time it's there in the camera, and then I keep that segment. I've got so many that I've accumulated,
Mhm.
strange anomalies flying by, or voices,
Mhm.
that have been caught on camera. I heard that, and then there it is. It's singing or whatever it's saying. It's right there on the audio. That's why I have the cameras up. And I have 5 different cameras in the house, and I've got 2 outside. So I'll listen to the ones outside and inside to see if it's something outside that bled through.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
many thoughts. This whole interview, we went over what we were definitely going to
Yeah,
do.
well, that's what
Way
happens.
over.
Like-minded people get together, they create,
Yeah, man.
they
This is
discuss intelligent things.
this is great, Chris.
At least we didn't sit there and go, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, I got drunk. I did this and that. Hey, let's talk
No.
about the paranormal. It's like, oh my God.
We
I
can
can't
do this
listen to
for hours.
podcasts like that.
We can do this for hours, man.
Right.
But Chris, I want to say thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
being part of the Paranormal Guys podcast.
Appreciate
Yes.
it.
What do you got going on next, man?
Well, I'm trying to solidify this Ireland trip with this woman. She's remarkable. This woman I just started working with last week. And then I'm looking to see if we're going to be doing the pop-up Paracon. Those are 2 most important things. I have to redo my website, is chrisfleming.com, and Ghost Outlet. I've been wanting to do for a while, and I've been paying both Wix and GoDaddy every single month for the past 2 years, wasting money. So I've got to get that done within the next month. So I want to launch that. And then my podcast, I have not been doing episodes because I had my surgery and I had all this other stuff go on that I know the person that's broadcasting my podcast is going to be shutting it down after 18, 19 years. So I have to take all my podcasts, find somewhere else to put them, and then I'm going to start cranking out both video and audio podcasts with some guests. So that's what I'm working towards. And then I'm going to redo my YouTube and start loading content from the last 20 years of
Nice.
stuff that I've gotten. And so those are the main things. And plus my art, I do all the time. You know, I sell my artwork, and I've got to go to the printer on Friday to check out some new proofs of some new work I've done to correct, make sure the color is okay, and print that out. And, you know, so that's it. It's pretty much the art. And then my podcast, my websites, and these trips is what I'm working on right now.
Okay. All right. Well, once again, thanks very much for your time, man. I didn't know you'd give me so much time. It's just wonderful.
You know, I like to talk to people about this stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Stevie,
thanks
anything
for
to
having
say
me.
before we go out?
This has been an incredible experience talking with you, Chris.
Thank you, Steve.
There's a lot of video that I'm going to have to catch up on. I have a little viewers list here. I'm going to be watching stuff about castles and
watch the
hauntings
shows.
and-
It's
yeah.
extraordinary, Spooked Ireland, especially that we introduced and we used a lot of apps. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're going to be blown away by the direct communication back and forth. But remember, like you said, anything else, when I first started using apps, I'm like, but the more you start using, you bond with them. And then when spirits know that, they will talk to you back and forth. You see that on the show because I've been using these apps. And here's the thing people need to realize. We talk about it on the field. Like, Neil, we do these events. Okay. When I do these events, you know, anywhere between 7 to 10 or 12 a year, is we use all various forms of equipment. Plus a lot of the attendees bring equipment. So I learn about new equipment and stuff when they bring it. And I say, all right, let's test it out. So everything you've seen me use on the show, I've already tested out in the field. Same thing with Ryan. He does all his events. So all the apps, I've already used the Ghost Tube app at some of the events that I've done, you know, not Waverly Hills, but Joliet Prison, okay, Tinker Swiss Cottage, stuff like that. So I know they work. So I'm comfortable with them while I'm overseas, knowing they work, right? And because you have that relationship with the device or the software, it will communicate with you because they know that's the vehicle and how to do so. You got to communicate with me this way. I've been doing it with people in America. You got to do it here. Okay, we'll talk to you through there. You're going to be blown away by you see some of the conversations. I was even blown away, like, oh my God, this is so cool. I love it. Love it.
All right. Well, once again,
All
thank
right.
you. And as always, boys and girls, boo.
Boo.